that Echo was, but it's not going to matter. Kirk on the flank finds it down onto one. Riot's already down, so it's a technical 1 versus 2. And Bry just swung to his death. Twizzler on the top floor will look to retrieve their teammate, but Kirk can find the timing and clutch it out. An ace for Kirk.
But Spider still gets a kill, and then Extra not ready for in the corner, but oh my goodness, he gets the kill anyways! He gets the kill, Teddy left alive. He does it yet again for Mirage! He's low on health, especially when the Vulcan canisters are in play, but now Ambi low as well, but he takes the kill anyways! He's still left, but with 15 seconds and not too much intel as to where they are, it's not looking great for him, but he's just got the isolated frag on an aim key, and the last one's left in Freezer. This could be a very easy pick to find if he just looks in the right corners with the shotgun as well. He'll be lethal in the close range. A 1-on-2 for the Gridlock.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the XGS Spring Burst. We are here in the Group B part of the group stage, getting ready for a promotion match. How are you doing tonight, Goose?
I'm doing good. I'm feeling great, and I'm hyped because tonight is a detrimental match. It is a promotion match. It's, a win or go home. If you don't win, right, you're out of this. And on top of that, we have a rematch with Coastal Gaming against Bros Without Hose. And the last time they met each other, Coastal Gaming won by only 2 rounds.
That's right. We got a rematch. We got an elimination match. This is taking us up to decide who's potentially going to be playing in some of the grand final stuff for this group stage. There's a lot of stuff riding on this specific match. And yeah, it wasn't a blowout last time these two teams came to blows. It was pretty close. And so now that we got a best of 3, it's going to be about which team is going to be ready to go the distance, because it's not just the best of 1. It's not just one map. They're going to have to be able to prove themselves on multiple maps here.
Yeah, both these teams looking really good. While Coastal Gaming did lose their last match, they lost 8-7 against a really good Valkyrie team, a team where JJ went positive. And if JJ's going positive, that you're going up against a very good Valkyrie team. And then with Bros for Hose, they just completely wiped, going 2-0 in their best of 3, which eventually got them here. And Speaking of their opponent, Coastal Gaming, we didn't know who they were going into this. And if you weren't, relatively informed on the T3, T4 scene, not only did you not know who they were, but we didn't expect this result, not only in qualifiers, but in group stage here too.
Yeah, I mean, these teams have kind of come out and are surprising a lot of people. And, there's only room for one more. So we can't have both of these teams going on as much as we'd like, because they've really fought hard through the qualifiers to get here. They've fought hard to stay alive and go through the lower brackets. So now they're here. Now they're coming head to head. We're taking a look here at what Coastal is kind of bringing in their roster with Gav running, Kobe, Engage, Russ, Resident. Got some people here who have been, popping off lately, especially like you said, that last game they had, or Coastal, I think. It wasn't Coastal. Actually, Bros Hose went 2-0 the last time they played, I believe. Is that correct?
Last time they played each other, it was 7-5, and the last time that Bros Without Hose played was 2-0. And speaking of Coastal Gaming, last night they played with a bit of a different roster. Today, for the first map only, if we do go to a third map, for the second map at least, Kobe will only be playing for the first map. If you're not, very familiar with who he is, he played in E2 with Envy. He's a very great player. So I'm looking to see not what he does on map 1, but to see what Coastal Gaming can do on the second map without him, because they could win 7-1, but then the next game they could lose because they don't have Kobe, which is a very good entry fragger, a really good player. And then if we're looking at Bros Without Hose, you have a lot of good players here. Joe, recently coming from Come Up, now playing with a lot of different players, playing with Mike W, Nilek and Snoopy he previously did play with, but they also recently added Course 8 X, T2, and T1 pro player, so he brings all of that, knowledge and just really can hold the team together. But Mid Garage, if you look at the bottom, we can see that compared to Coastal Gaming, the percentages between their attacking and defensive win-loss is a little uneven.
Yeah, Bros Without Hose, definitely a bit more discrepancy between the two, much favoring defense, which isn't surprising for a team to ultimately favor defense, especially in the meta that we're currently in. But it was a bit more even when we were looking at Coastal Gaming's stat line. And so if Bros Without Hose don't manage to mount some good attacks here and they're relying solely on the defense, they might struggle to get the better of Coastal Gaming.
Oh yeah, no doubt. And what when we go into comparing the two players from two teams, we'll touch on why Coastal Gaming has a better success rate on attack than Bros Without Hose do. And nonetheless, let's not take anything away from Bros Without Hose. But speaking of those two players, we have Russ for Coastal Gaming and Mike W. And as I spoke about before, Coastal Gaming having that more favored winning percentage on attack, that being 51%. And that is in due to both the survival rate with Russ surviving more as not only, your made fragger, but your entry player being a lot more successful. And that's what, translates into actual rounds because he's able to get those opening picks. It makes it a lot easier in that late round for their attack. Rather with Mike W, he's still, somewhat of a very decent, but because, his survival rate is down a little bit, and because his entry, being 3 and 5 isn't as good, that's why you see the discrepancy between the overall attacking win percentage. And I'm really, curious to see if, how these stats and how they're affected not only by the first game, as I said, with that new player coming in, or sub rather, but going into that second map.
Yeah. And we were looking and talking earlier about conversion rates and the ability that when you get the opening frag of a round, how often are you making that round one of your rounds? How often are you winning it? And Coastal Gaming were very impressive there. And so you see that Russ, really good on the entry, that does have legitimate kind of causality and gives you those rounds ultimately in the end. They're winning them out because of that stuff. So we're going to be watching Russ. We're going to be watching the entry. We're going to see if Mike W steps up. And see how the entries go there, who's surviving, who's living longer and managing to kind of stick around to the end of the round and be really important. But also, these are two highly rated players in general. You look, so 100 is kind of the mean or the average of the EPS there, which is just a scoring system. And so both of these guys are above average. They're really talented players. We're expecting both of them to pop off. And really, it might just come head-to-head between those two. Who's going to be the better star player of the team? Sometimes when it's a close match, one individual star performance can be what it takes to win it out.
Yeah, and speaking of the match, we got to look at what maps we're going to. Order, Cafe, Bank, and Consulate being banned out. Chalet being picked by Coastal Gaming. This is the game they just lost 8-7 to Valkyrie on. And then Skyscraper being picked out with Bros Without Hose. Joe playing, very familiar. Skyscraper is a very, I would say, not a map you see a whole lot. You have to really know what you're doing if you want to go to that map. And then our decider being Oregon, the definition of a 50-50 playing ground. It could go either way. But I'm really curious to see, Coastal Gaming picking that Chalet, realizing, sure, we did lose, but it was 8-7 against a really good team and a team that was in E2. So I really do like that pick from Coastal Gaming.
Yeah, I don't think it should be too much of a concern for anyone out there rooting for Coastal Gaming. It's something that they've shown that they can be very competitive on, as well as the fact that I think they have the opportunity to really set the tempo on that. When we already talked about how Coastal is better on attack, or they at least have a better attacking percentage than Bros Without Hose do. And so they start on that map, they get to choose, or they're going to, Coastal or Bros Without Hose is choosing which side, which probably means Coastal starts on attack on Chalet. We'll see if they set the tempo, if they come out swinging, if they are able to pick up some rounds really early on before Bros Without Hose can kind of clue into the speed that Coastal is going to be bringing. That could be really instrumental in taking that first map.
Yeah, most definitely. And, even if Bros Without Hose don't win that first map, they're going into Skyscraper. Skyscraper is a type of map where you have to have a game plan going in. You can't just go into Skyscraper thinking that the other team is going to be playing worse, because Skyscraper is such a very I wouldn't say weird map, but it's a difficult map, especially on the attack, which they've been having somewhat of a problem compared to Coastal Gaming. Don't get me wrong, a 43% win rate on attack is relatively good, especially in the meta we find ourselves. But I think both teams picking these two maps is because they have a game plan going. It's not just a map they like. I think they actually have an idea of what they want to do, and I think they like their odds, playing against each other's playstyles.
Yeah, especially this far into a tournament like this, the teams that have made it to this point are coming in with game plans. They aren't just winging it. These aren't just rank stacks that decide to join the tournament. These are people who study the map. They look at what the other team is going to be bringing. They have strategies. Of course, those strategies don't always work, but they're at least coming prepared. And yeah, that Skyscraper pick, I think there's got to be a good reason. Skyscraper, as you were saying, is a bit of a different map than a lot of other places. It's really easy for defenders to spread out and have these super strongholds kind of across the entirety of the top floor of the map, and so it really tests your mettle as an attacker, and that's going to be something that we're going to see if Bros Without Hose can kind of bump up that attacking percentage a bit.
Yeah, and again, looking at these two teams, sure, Bros Without Hose coming from that, under bracket, somewhat, if you look at it on paper, should be the underdogs, but Coastal Gaming haven't really proven anything. Obviously, they have made Xenon through the qualifiers, and now we are here. But if they beat this team today, I still think somewhat they are the underdogs because they don't have a whole lot of higher T3, maybe even T2 experience, like some players like Mike W or Quartz on Bros Without Hose have. So going into this matchup, I don't think Bros Without Hose should 100% win it, but I do think they have a better chance statistically on paper. But as we've seen from Coastal Gaming, they continue to surprise us game after game, round after round, and it's just, honestly, it looks like they really understand how to play with each other and play as a team.
Yeah, I mean, they're exciting teams to watch. I'm very excited to see them go head to head here on Chalet. It's, one of my favorite maps. But more of the stuff I like to talk about. Yeah, you were bringing up how Bros Without Hose have some talent on their team that's been around the scene for a long time, some more recognizable names, and that could potentially be the type of thing that, especially in a best of 3, having experience and having people who have kind of been through the pressure of these competitive best of 3s, people who know how to deal with that pressure when it comes to a map 3, when it comes to overtime, when it comes to having to look down the barrel of a big comeback, those are the people you want on your team.
And I'm really looking at these bans, for attacking so far. We've seen Ying, Dokubi, and Habana being the most banned operators with a 71, 43, and a 28% ban rate. So going into this, Ying will continue to be that most banned operator, not only in Xenon so far, but also just, other T3, T2, even T1 is a continued operator, especially in the current meta. She is just so strong and she helps that attack out. So Coastal banning it out is basically saying, Bros Without Hose, you're not going to have that operator to fall back on and make yourselves feel safe.
Yeah, with how defender-sided everything is, Ying is just a great way to force the envelope as an attacker to blind everybody and push in. And taking that away means that, you're not going to be able to use her as a crutch. You're going to have to be a better attacking team. Also going to see Flores taken off. Flores is just way too much utility you want to leave on the board. You don't want someone to have that many drones, that much explosive utility. He can just get rid of so much and find so much stuff.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Solus also being banned out. Just another one of those really powerful operators. These aren't bans per se that are going directly towards what a team is bringing towards each other. They're not, target bans or whatever. These are just bans that are kind of, in the meta. Fenrir, not only is he just banned a whole lot, but he is banned, I believe it's around like 60 to 70% on Chalet. So he's banned a lot because he's just really annoying to deal with, especially pushing in that later round, whether it be on kitchen or, for example, if you're trying to do a back take on blue stairs when attacking basement, he just makes the job really difficult. As he can blind you. So taking out operators, just these are really operators that both teams just don't want to deal with. It's not anything crazy coming out. So having somewhat of an even playing ground, and while, as I said before, Coastal did lose, it was a really close game, and they've had plenty of time to look back, reassess, and really understand what they need to change up going into this matchup.
Yeah, first round, we're going down to bar and gaming. Not necessarily the first sight I would have expected to see, but once again, hoping that Bros Without Hose are coming in with a plan. They have strats. We're even seeing some, the typical Mira setup is there, but Doc being brought typically means that they're going to try and anchor in either on site or maybe above site, and then try and just stay alive. Use those stims to keep people healthy, to keep yourself in the fight, despite the fact that you're going to be taking in a bunch of grenades and random fire through windows and that sort of thing.
Yeah, not a whole lot of throwable denial with, neither a Jaeger or a Wamai. So those flashbangs, not only the flashbangs, but the actual gas bolts from Kappa Tower, going to basically be able to just fly freely without being denied whatsoever. So it's going to be really up to what Bros Without Hosts, just really just, you know, look away, you know, maybe move away from positions to be flashed. They're not going to have that utility back up. I really love this Brava play from Russ. You know, while you're not going to have a whole lot of utility hit, maybe you can get a couple of Valkyrie cams, you can still deny a whole lot of intel and actually give it to yourself away from the defense.
It's a huge Twitch drone there to catch that mirror window. This is going to leave Snoopy in a bit more of a tight position as he now doesn't have as much hard cover to hide behind that mirror window, really making him more exposed, especially to these long angles that can be contested from someone like Dokkaebi, repelled. But it is going to be first Resident getting the first pick onto Snoopy, so Snoopy probably does die because of the pressure there. That mirror window getting popped created. Mike W is going to fill in for his spot though. Keep contesting this part of Mezzanine. Make sure they can hold onto it and keep it safe. Meanwhile, Joe will get the refrag onto Resident, shut him down. So that's Twitch out of the match for now. Joe is also going to keep holding onto this window. He's really hard to move out of this position just because they can't really get good angles onto him. Meanwhile, Mike W finds another pick onto run it. So things aren't going great for Coastal despite the fact that they got the opening pick. They are now down in man count.
And not only are they down in man count, but they don't have a whole lot of map control either. As you can see, 2 players outside, but it doesn't matter because Russ just walked through, and he's able to walk through because he got that default camera in bottom fireplace, and now they have map control. But Engage, here's a player coming up trying to kill him. Gets back down on the plant, the C4 going out, but it's not going to get engaged, but it's actually, it looks like Quartz rotating around, and it's Quartz to get the down, and Mike W to finish it off on Kobe, and just a really great round, and just a lot of intel denial, but it was up to the players from Bros Without Hosts to just do a very successful retake.
You know, I think I would have liked to see a bit more utility usage, especially from the amount of throwables that Coastal brought. You pointed out there wasn't any throwable denial. We didn't have an Aruni or a Wamai or a Jaeger, and every person on Coastal had some sort of throwable utility in their pocket that they could have used, and we didn't really see it come to fruition. Like, we could have seen a lot of those angles be cut off and maybe, you know, give Coastal some coverage to push in and get that plant down a bit more safely, but they opted not to do it. They saw an opening, pushed into sight, and ultimately didn't have the map control they needed to actually hold on to sight while they were trying to plant.
It didn't really feel like, you know, they were doing their bare minimums, clearing out those roamers, clearing out those players off site, holding those power positions, and that's what enabled Bros to have such a successful retake, because while Coastal did hit and take control of the site, they didn't actually have a structure around it, whether that be intel or players holding lines of sight, and that one player on the side of Engage trying to get that plant down just was too antsy and didn't get it down in time. So there really, aside from the players, there was no extra pressure being applied to Bros Without Hose. And I really want to see, you know, Coastal Gaming just getting their basics down, making sure they have a structured setup before they actually start to hit the site.
For sure, they're going to need to cover their bases a bit better than they did the last time. Going to see them maybe bring in a slightly different roster of people, maybe emphasizing more some top-down destruction with Buck. Going to bring a shotgun to open up some floors potentially. We're also going to see IQ being brought specifically to hunt cameras, hunt other bits of utility, make it more difficult for information to be used against them. But Bros Without Hosts just kind of holding the same way. We have someone holding up here on Mezzanine. It's Mike W, who already popped off last round. He has the opportunity to potentially do this again. Control so many different lines of sight here from Mezzanine and just absorb so much time, so much utility if they don't get enough quick.
Yeah, and the thing about these, you know, positions that these two players are holding with Nilek and Mike W is they don't have a whole lot of utility. They don't have a Jaeger. They don't have a Mira now. They don't even really have a zombie charges. And because of this, even if you die and trade a player, Coastal Gaming are not going to be able to take a whole lot of utility away, because aside from, you know, those zombie charges, aside from Mike W, his gun and his actual Legion charges, he's not going to be able to give away too much info or too much utility, and it's actually Joe to get the first pick onto Runnin.
Finally, action starts to happen. Mike W, unfortunately, getting a pick onto Resident. The push and pinch not really working out for Coastal. They just waited a bit too long. Snoopy finds a big spawn peek. Russ does answer back and finally shuts down Mike W, but it's definitely too late, and the damage has already been done unto Coastal, who are down just to 2 men left against 4. Now, Nilek is low on HP, so he can get shut down pretty quickly, but they still have 3 other full health defenders that they're going to have to find. And right now, Quartz has this awkward position above the bomb chassis. He has the MP5 with a 1.5 times scope. As Doc, he can tank a ton of bullets. He can be really difficult to contest. And he's going to get Nilek back up. So it's 4 full health guys up and running. And it's already looking like another round for Bros Without Hose here.
Yeah, with only 30 seconds left, Russ and Engage, all they can really do is just bait and hope players from Bros Without Hose overswing. And that's exactly what Quartz did. But it's just not enough because Don Snoopy gets a shot into Engage. And now Russ, while he is on the scoreboard, it's just not going to be enough. And with a position being held upstairs, but it's going to be actually Nilek to shut it down. And in the first 2 rounds, Coastal Gaming have not been able to find pretty much anything so far.
I also want to point out that Nilek took damage on that final engagement to win it out, which he would not have survived had Doc not stimped him. So the Doc actually coming in, being utilitarian, not just a comfort pick, actually having some effect.
Yeah, it's just honestly, if I'm looking at Coastal right now and what they're bringing to the table, aside from droning and then going in, taking sight, and then swinging, they're not bringing a whole lot. And I wouldn't even say they're really feeling that Flores ban, because Bros Without Hose isn't throwing out a whole lot of out of sight utility. Sure, Don Snoopy bringing that shield in those first 2 rounds, and yet again bringing it outside of the sight. But Joe or the zombie isn't really bringing a whole lot. Now Mike W is going to bring up that castle. Just don't have a lot of barbed wire. Sure, you have, or a lot of it actually being used more towards sight. So it's just there's just not a lot of utility for Coastal to clear. And it just, honestly, I think it's just coming down to them losing those gunfights. It's just them giving those isolated plays to Bros Without Hose. And because of that, when they do lose that player, they don't have a secondary player behind them or even near them to get that refrag.
I think Coastal understands that they need to change something, and they were going to potentially hop on a blitz for a second, but Resident decides to choose Grim instead. But still, we're seeing Ash, we're seeing Dokkaebi. We're still bringing a buck. There's a bit more emphasis maybe on explosivity, destruction, forcing roamers out, which is hopefully what we need to see. We need to see a more structured clear from Coastal, and they're already getting started. They're pushing into Car Garage. They're getting their flanks covered with Gridlock and those track stingers. So they're starting pretty quickly here on parts of the map that they know are clear, and they're going to work from there. Take map control, keep safe areas, move out, pinch these guys. They know Snoopy's here. That's not the way you want to start out, though, as Joe is going to find run, and that's your buck gone. That's most of your hard breach, or not your hard breach, your soft breach stuff. Yeah, they still got some secondary breach charges and Ash, but it's just not as quick, it's not as easy or as usable as Buck's skeleton keys. That's a big loss.
Yeah, yet again, Coastal Gaming just giving these isolated plays, and now it's running. They understood where Joe was, and even if they didn't, he was in a very basic spot. You had a player on window repel, so you should have been able to hear him. But Runny just decided to take that isolated play, swing him in. Because he lost it, not only did he lose his utility, but his team was not in a position to get that refrag. And if you saw where Joe was playing, again, he didn't have a whole lot of utility aside from those Kiba barriers. He didn't have a Umai, he didn't have a Jaeger, and there was nobody even around him. That was a free refrag and repick, but because Coastal Gaming are not putting their players into positions to get these refrags, they simply just cannot get them. And now Mike W continuing to double down. Russ now also down. They're just not seeing these lines of sight, and they're just not doing their due diligence.
2v5 turned quickly into a 2v4. Red finally finds one on Nilek. But once again, like last round, it's probably too late for anything to happen, as that Toppin has just no information. Snoopy shuts down Kobe. Joe gets shut down himself, but Quartz ultimately is the one get resident. And it's another pretty confident round going the way of Bros Without Hose.
Joe saying it perfectly. That was a really good solar clear. It wasn't. They didn't try to clear. Buck just swung, died, and they had 2 players on rappel just hoping somebody swung them, and it just didn't happen. It's just Coastal being a traffic cone right now. That's exactly what they are. They're not trying to actually engage any fights and any entry kills, and when they do, it's always an isolated play. And not only that, but after they lose these isolated plays, I've said it yet time and time again, they don't have the players in the position to get the refrags, but they also don't set up the drone intel, and you have players like Mike W in that initial play you just saw in the replay playing above and just getting a player walking up reading stairs, or not reading, but west main stairs. They didn't have a drone, they didn't have any intel, it was just a free kill. It's just Coastal Gaming not doing the basics they need to do in the early round, and because of that, they're being punished horribly. And now they find themselves, while it is still on the attack, down 3 rounds.
Down 3 rounds, not necessarily a terrible situation. If Coastal can mount a comeback, they have to start now. They can potentially still tie this out, but Roosevelt Ho is looking really good, and they're not having to change up their strategy too much. A similar roster being brought. Meanwhile, it's going to be Coastal that's going to have to change things up. They're bringing Hibana. They're going to start focusing on the hatches, as maybe they're going to go up above, take libraries, see if they can't take control there, open up some walls above this bar and gaming site that we've gone back to. But we'll see. Nomad's being brought instead of Gridlock in terms of flank watch. Gridlock didn't see much use in general. I do like actually what we're seeing from the Hibana. Get rid of those mirrors on the walls that can test that library hopping. Those have been a real problem for Coastal in terms of clearing, and that's exactly what's going to happen. Joe is going to be shut down. That's the good pinch. That's what they've needed to be doing this whole time. It's running to finally get the first pick for Coastal that could potentially give them what they need to take map control and not run out of time doing it.
Joe, yet again, in a very powerful position, and again, not with a whole lot of utility. No castle on that window, and Coastal, after 3 rounds, have realized this and took a really easy engagement, pushing him off that mirror initially, and then having a player on top highway get him. This top highway player continuing to play here and continuing to put pressure. But the thing for Coastal Gaming is, aside from that pick, they haven't gotten a whole lot. They haven't gotten another pick. They haven't gotten more intel, and they haven't gotten any map control off of it. They still have a player playing outside of highway. Sure, you have one player in library, but he's kind of stuck in this corner, and they haven't been able to clear out Don Snoopy. And now that gives Mike W the chance to get a refrag, but yet again, Russ just making a solo hero play, running in, but he hasn't done enough to set up a structure. And now, while he does have site control, he doesn't have case control, and there's still 2 players upstairs, but it doesn't matter because it's a double kill, a triple in total for running. It's Kobe to shut it down, and wow, just a really oversight and a really great save from the last couple players of Coastal Gaming.
Yeah, some surprising stuff happened there. I liked what Coastal did in terms of getting the pinch, but you also noted that they weren't quite making or taking advantage of the map control that they could have had up above, but instead they did just go straight for sight. That's the second time we've seen Russ just go into sight. The first time in round 1 all the way back then, it didn't really work out for them. He went into sight, they didn't have the map control, he got shut down, there were too many angles watching it, and they couldn't make the plant happen. But this time, he managed to go in. They already had some of top floor cleared just because they had gotten some kills there, and so they just kept and held some crossfires, held some window angles, and were able to punish the defenders who tried to make positions move and rotate downstairs. Ultimately, a much better played round from Coastal, but still a little bit scrappy, a little scary there in the end. It was just a good 2K from the Nomad, who I think got a good lineup, but it could have easily gone the way of Roosevelt Hose. It wasn't a confident round for Coastal.
Oh, no, most definitely. That was not a confident round. You saw Russ get rid of that fireplace main cam, and he just, yet again, like the very first round, with that cam gone, ran through into sight, making a solo hero play. But the difference that round was Rose with the Hose were in the exact same position with 2 players upstairs ready to do a retake. But that time they didn't expect that one player to be outside on balcony holding it. And they were, I wouldn't say lucky, but they were very fortunate that player was there holding that cross, because if he wasn't there, that would have been a very easy retake and just a collapse onto Russ. But nonetheless, still a very good play. We need to see more from them. Not only, just, from their plays from their late round, but definitely their early round. It's their early round where they're being handicapped really quickly.
certainly true. We're seeing Running getting in pretty quickly, at least pushing in through that library portion. Meanwhile, Engage is starting to push down and head downstairs. Though the roam presence for Bros Fat Hose isn't quite taken care of. There's still some people out and about. And I'm not sure if Coastal knows about this. But Coastal looking to get rid of some of them, they have to start getting towards site and start aggressing towards site if they're not going to go just clear up these roamers. They need to either push the envelope or take full map control. And right now, they're kind of not doing either. They're a little bit slow, and potentially a pick going to be found out. Mike W from below is letting them know he's here. He's going to do some damage onto Resident. It's again a thorn in their side. And this is what I mean is Coastal isn't clearing out the rest of the map for roam, and they're not just pushing directly into sight. You got to do one or the other. If you just sort of sit on the fence, you're just going to consistently be bled dry by these little cuts that the roamers from Bros Without Hosts can continue to do, especially Nylike up here. He has reinforced stuff. He can hold on to there. Resident is going to go down because they don't punish Mike W for being down here and giving away his position.
Yeah, I really love this play by Mike W. And then you just have Quartz going down those west main stairs to give him that heal. And it was just a play that was a little bit overzealous. And because of that, he's eventually punished by Engage. But Coastal, that is not a pick. It is not a refrag that they got. That was something that was given to them. And they haven't taken control. They haven't really gotten a whole lot, and how Joe going to shut it down again. Mike W aware that this player is still in this position, and because Engage was not playing in a fluid playstyle, just being very static, he knew exactly where he is and just gave him another kill. And now, in the late round, yet again, we see Coastal in a man disadvantage with no map control, no intel, and absolutely nothing to favor them.
Another 2v4, probably not going to go the way of Coastal unless something insane happens. A trade is going to be what puts it down to a 1v3, and Joe is there to finish it off. Coastal just unable to match the really good roam presence we're seeing coming out of Bros Without Hosts, who are realizing that Coastal isn't doing a full clear, and they're taking advantage of that. They're really pushing it as far as they can go. They're sending roamers everywhere. They're holding on until the last second. I like what Quartz is doing, where he's really bringing that dock, I think, every single round now, just to keep the roam alive by healing the roamers after they get into engagements.
Not only is he just healing them after engagements, but he's making sure that when they do continue to win these roaming gunfights on the roam, that they're not punished by losing their health. You know, it may seem like, you know, a very small thing, you know, it's just a dock. The dock's been in the game, but it's such a big, because even when Coastal loses those gunfights and takes damage off those players, that dock is there to back it right up. And then you just take the only thing that Coastal has away from them. But we're giving too much props to Bros Without Hosts, in my opinion. Coastal, just, again, as I've said before, not doing their due diligence and not doing a full clear, not doing a full setup, just trying to hit the site soft. I mean, in that round, we saw they tried to hit site with no top clear, no roam clear whatsoever. Sure, they sent a player down, but he eventually died to Mike W. And the only pick I believe they got was, you know, just a refrag onto that player, Nylek missing all the shots, and then Quartz just turning his back, not really paying attention. The only picks and the only opportunities they are getting is when Bros Without Hosts are overlooking their positions and honestly just giving picks to Coastal. So far, Coastal has not taken anything and have been given everything that's running to take the first pick.
Nylek gets shut down, but it's a quick answer back from Quartz to shut down Engage to make things ultimately a 4v4. Engagement's going pretty quickly. I want to see Coastal use the utility they brought. This is one of those sites that you can just open the wall and push right in. They have the Cali, use her lands, and potentially just make something happen. But a great play from upstairs by Mike W, who's been on fire, finds a hole with the impact and is able to shut down onto Kobe. Now it's a 3v4. You've lost your dedicated hard breach of ace. You still have a Maverick, but it's just not as good. And the vertical play is just coming out again. Mike with another one onto Russ. Resident answers back to keep the man at disadvantage just to 1 for now. He gets a second one to tie it up. 2v2. Look at running. He's on less than half HP. Quartz is still on that dock, making sure that these defenders are full HP. But lots of time left for Coastal to start pushing in. They have the control they need of this site, but do they have enough control behind them of their flank to get the plant down? Mike W on these stairs. Quartz just looking to see if anyone's in the map. Running with a great pick though, as Mike doesn't know where he is in sight. Gets it Quartz wins out his 1v1 over there. This is going to force Runnin to drop. He doesn't have control of Diffuser. He still has enough time to make this happen. He has some flashes and some utility, but right now Quartz isn't in blue, or he's not close enough to be flashed. This plant, is he going to fake the plant? The barbed wire coming out. He's pulling out the bailiff for this close range corner engagement. Runnin backing off. That bailiff is not going to work there. He's starting to defuse, luring Runnin out. All Runnin has to do is just keep playing safe and just shoot and scare Quartz a little bit, and there he gets it. He scared Quartz off. He goes all the way around the cellar, and he manages to finally shut him down. A really close 1v1, some really excellent kind of hero plays from individuals there. But ultimately, it does go the way of Coastal Gaming, who managed to get the 2-4 split for their attacking side on a map that is still defender side.
While that round was still relatively sloppy for Coastal, not even in their overall, just how they played the map, just their gunfight engagement to engagement, it was overall, that was, my opinion, their best round. Not only because they won it, but just because of how they played it, how they played those positions. When they did lose that player to Mike W, they had those other players, those supporting cast, to get those refrags, to trade that kill back. And because of that, they didn't shoot themselves in the early round, in which led, to them having more players, more body, in turn, more drones to then use to push onto the site. And then those last two players playing that situation, that 2v2, very good. And Coastal Gaming somewhat saving and salvaging their half, a 2-4 half on Chalet on the attack isn't bad, but it doesn't tell the story of how sloppy it was. And, to an extent, some of those engagements, you could say that, Bros Without Hose somewhat, I guess, threw, or maybe, overthrew, were a bit overzealous. But nonetheless, it really looks like Coastal is starting to at least put their foot in the door in this series.
And especially now that they're on the favored side going up against Bros Without Hose, we pointed out earlier, they don't have the best attacking win rate. So they're really going to have to pull out some good attacks here. They're going to have to stay organized, but they might also kind of fall apart. We might see some slop like we did for Coastal, who now could be on the favored side, but not like that. Russ getting tagged, but ultimately Quartz can't finish him off. A great read, though, from Nilek. Does get the rotate and shut it down, evening things out. But you still lose it. Dokubi and all of those logic bombs so early on. No! Oh. Snoopy getting jumped out on by Resident, who just was waiting there, saw the drone, took the opportunity. Hopefully, Coastal won't let, or Bros Without Hose won't let something like that happen again, but that's another big loss. As they lose the Twitch, they're also going to lose Mike W, who's been their top frag to engage. Things not going the way of Bros Without Hose here.
Wow, and Bros Without Hose continue to just fall player by player, instance by instance. Nilek trying to get anything, but he doesn't have anything. All he has is the bomb and his gun. Not only is he in a 1v4, but there's only a minute and 40 left, and they know exactly where he is, and he's just going to try to run into sight for Hail Mary, but it's not going to work. It's going to be running to shut him down. It's going to be the very first defensive round for Coastal Gaming, going to them nonetheless.
Yeah, don't let Runnin catch you running. He will shut you down. And just like that, we are brought to a 1-point game. Bros Without Hose only lead now by 1. Coastal could easily tie this up, but that's just the power of that defensive half, When you get to lurk around, lay in wait, when it's up to the attackers to really set the tempo, it's a lot of responsibility, and there are a lot of things that you have to get covered before you can do a successful attack, and it's just a more difficult strategy and a more difficult operation.
Yeah, that first trade going to this, or first entry going to the side of Coastal, being traded back by Bros Without Hose, but then, Snoopy just throwing out his drone. And it really goes to show that if you ask a lot of, even pro players, maybe some coaches, the overall attacking meta and how to, win your attacks is somewhat simple. Obviously, it's a lot deeper than, what you see on the surface level, but at the end of the day, you have to play together. You have to double up in every engagement, and we're just seeing these 1v1s being lost by the attackers, not only with Bros Without Hose, but now Coastal winning them on their very first defensive round. It just goes to show that, sure, doubling up won't win you games, it won't win you rounds. It'll definitely put you in a much better position in resisted just running out, getting a huge pick that is now Mike W, not only your top fragger and top entry player gone, but now your only hard breach operator off the board, only 30 seconds into the round.
Yeah, it's a huge loss for them, and especially since they weren't close enough to really make any sort of refrag happen off of it. So they're just going to be stuck in this man disadvantage for a little bit. Yeah, losing that losing that hard breach is just devastating. I also think it's interesting to note that we've seen a lot of drone play come out from the attackers, at least in terms of the operators ringing, a lot of Twitch, a lot of Brava in place of the Flores being banned. But we've also been seeing a lot more Mozzie than you normally see, specifically to counter that. In addition, we've been seeing mute. So there's a lot of denial coming out from Coastal that I think renders some of Bros Without Hose utility kind of inert unless they're able to get rid of it.
Yeah, not only is Coastal just denying utility, playing more of that, old Siege 2020 meta, but they're also just playing really aggressive, going for these early spawn peaks and runouts, and Bros Without Hose in these first 2 rounds, just not only are they not ready for it, but they just don't have an answer. They don't have the players in the position to answer back, and that just gives Coastal these early engagements that they win. And just honestly, it just completely stunts Bros Without Hose. And now you can see these players trying to roam clear the top hold, but they just haven't droned out. They are not aware of this player, and they were not aware of Resisted. And because of that, Resisted now gets the very first, or actually second pick rather. Now Nilak and Don Snoopy in a situation that they cannot win, because that's a triple kill now for Runnin and Resisted, and Joe now in the 1v5 all alone in Coastal. Surely they'll tie it up here.
It's up to Joe, but yet not very likely that he makes anything happen. He will start to push in. He at least has diffuser, but 40 seconds is quite a bit of time for maybe multiple people still to be alive, but for a 1v5, not a whole lot of time to make this happen. He's most likely going to get shut down. There's still vertical control possessed for Coastal. They have mirror windows. They have all sorts of line of sight. It's ultimately Running to get the final kill again for this round, and that's that. We are at a tied game.
5 seconds left.
Coastal Gaming coming out in this second half, and it's all, I wouldn't say it's all due, but the common theme that we're seeing them that's putting them in such a great position to win these rounds is that really aggressive early entry engagements that they are pushing and forcing on Bros Without Hose, and so far they haven't been ready. Going for those runouts, going for those spawn peaks in positions where sometimes you really wouldn't expect a defender to be there. We're not even really seeing a defensive half that is winning. It's just those really aggressive engagements, and I'm really curious to see, because we didn't see this aggression work for Coastal Gaming when they were on the attack. And I think it's really due to just Bros Without Hose not expecting it.
Seeing Kobe on Tubarão, Engage on Bandit. We're also seeing Resident going for that Wamai. We're potentially going to see a lot of a big attempt to keep that snowmobile wall open, because if Bros Without Hose just go straight for that, they don't go for the roam clear, which hasn't really been successful for any of the teams when they've attempted to take a lot of map control.
Attackers are heading out.
We might just see them go straight through that snowmobile wall. We're seeing them bring both an Ace and a Thermite, as well as a Twitch, to be able to get rid of any sort of bandit batteries or denial that's on that wall. But I'm gonna hopefully see some fun bandit tricking, some fun stuff with Tubarão freezing the wall, then put a bandit battery down. But we will see.
Yeah, I really love how just, Tubarão is as an operator, but, so far, we haven't seen a whole lot done. Obviously, he's been able to, deny walls, really waste time for hard breachers and overall attack, but, we haven't had, so much time for him to develop these, really weird and crazy strats. I really hope we can see something, really out of, uncommon, out of space here, but actually, Runnin' getting the intel on Quartz, I believe, and yes, that is. It's relayed to Russ, and Russ shuts down this early rush down blue stairs, and now, yet again, around the half point of the round, Bros Without Hose find themselves not only in a man disadvantage, but only 3 players away from losing the lead they had just a couple rounds ago.
Yeah, real unfortunate. I thought for sure Russ would be traded out there, but he's left with maybe a fifth, even less of his HP, but he somehow wins out the engagement. I kind of like what I was seeing from Bros Without Hose. Rather than going for that main wall of, if they can sneakily get in and just push down blue really fast, they can make it work, but it's not going to go their way. They will at least get one pick onto Kobe, getting rid of that Tuberel, but not before Tuberel's used most of his ice canisters. He slowed down a lot of these walls getting open, taking a lot of time. There's still a minute 15 left, but with only 2 players now that run and takes down Joe, it's not going to be a huge amount of time. Snoopy will find one, but Russ is just on a tear. He gets his third with the round. Engage shuts it down onto Snoopy, and yep, the lead has finally switched.
Wow. A clinical defense so far from Coastal, and I argue as much a better defense we've seen from Bros Without Hose, not necessarily because of how they've been playing, but because Bros Without Hose, they haven't really been throwing a lot of engagements. They have had that setup. They have been playing really aggressive, compared to when Coastal wasn't playing as aggressive, playing a little bit more passive on their attack. But Coastal Gaming, when they played a little bit passive on the attack, they just completely switched it up. As you can see, Russ just relaying that information, not really waiting for those 2 players to swing him, but he immediately swings and puts the engagement onto them. And honestly, that's why they're winning this defense, because Bros Without Hose just cannot deal, and they cannot answer back to this aggression they find themselves in the second half.
Yeah, both teams really bringing out a fairly aggressive, roam-heavy defense where there's a lot of swinging coming out from the defenders that just keeps catching the attackers off guard. And if Bros Without Hose want a chance of taking this map, they got to change what they're doing. They got to be on their toes, be ready for those swings when they do come, because Coastal is not going to stop until they are forced to stop.
Exactly. Bros Without Hose hasn't had control of this second half whatsoever, whether it be in the first engagement, whether it be the actual engagement once they start to actually push on the site, even if they can with a man advantage, which whenever they push on the site, because that early round has gone so successful for Coastal, Bros Without Hose has not been into a position to push site with either an even man count or even a man advantage. And we continue to see these drones. They have intel on these operators, but they just don't have the players. They don't have the overall, strategy and idea to actually push them out or even pick them off. And with Kobe in this position, sure, he's going 2-6. Sure, he hasn't been that player statistically, but all he has to do is just waste time. And if he gets a pick with it, that's really good. And not only that, but he also has run over by top Solarium stairs, just back him up. And now Quartz just completely going through the defense, trying to get an opening. But Bros Without Hose, like the rounds before, have not been able to find anything.
Yeah, they're just taking their time here. I've been liking the amount of Bravo we've been seeing get played. That's a good opening pick from Nyluk. Luckily, the Ace not dying early on, managing to stay alive. He manages to find the Valkyrie, and it's also been Russ. He is doing a pretty good job so far. He's at 9 and 7 right now. He's the second in terms of kills for his team. That's a good one to shut out, and he also got a lot of damage onto the Azami, which if you can shut down Azami, get rid of those barriers, prevent them from being generated and being used, that could also be potentially huge.
I really love this small pixel ankle being held by Resisted. I think he's realized that the position he's in, he can't really rotate back to site. He's not in a position where he can without being traded or being shot on a crossfire. But Mike W getting aggressive, he may be able to find Kobe off guard, and yes, he does. It is now the second pick going the way of Bros Without Hose, and so far this is the best early engagement and best round we've seen from this team on attack. But the thing is, Resisted, he has only 50 seconds left, and he's in a very powerful position. He hasn't been pushed out. He's going to opt to actually go upstairs, but that's going to be the fall of him, and now Bros Without Hose will be able to hit the site in a 2v4.
Engage does manage to answer back, finding one on the Nyluk. The engagements upstairs not going the way of Bros Without Hoses. Running managed to shut one out. All of a sudden, it's only a one-man advantage and not a whole lot of time for Bros Without Hoses. They're going to need to find the people, but Runner is still just loose up above. Joe finally shuts him down. 1v2. 18 seconds left. Collapse on Engage. Do they know where he is? He's able to flank around. They're shooting him through the feet holes. He's taken so much damage. Both of these attackers are also lit up, though, about half HP for both of them. So he only needs a few bullets on each one. Plant's not getting put down. Where's Plant going? It's finally getting put down, but Quartz is shut out, and they hop off the Plant. Engage with the clutch.
What just happened? What? I'm speechless. I don't know what to say. That's a 2v1. What was actually a 3v1 you should not have lost, and now Bros Without Hose almost tied it up, but now they find themselves not only down 2 rounds, but now their opponents, Coastal, up on match point. You were in a 3v5. You had all the intel. You even put yourself in a 2v5, and then you just gave these initial 1v1 engagements to running upstairs, and because of that, that was the downfall of the round. Bros Without Hose had a great and excellent starting round with those 2 entry engagements going to them, but when it came to that mid to late round transitioning into the actual site execute, when they're trying to clear running upstairs on that player playing upstairs, they just didn't have the intel, and they didn't have the drones, and they just gave him 2 isolated 1v1s, and because of that, he was able to even the man count. And just Bros Without Hose, not only did they, I guess you could say, choke that round, but they just didn't even put themselves in a winning position.
Yeah, really unfortunate stuff. As Bros Without Hose looked so good, and maybe the real reason they lost is you said this is the best round we've seen from them. I think you cast or cursed them, Goose. I think it's your fault.
I should
After you
have
said that, they just weren't able to make anything go their way. But that ending, they still should have been able to close it out in that 2v1. I think they just took too long in terms of getting the diffuser back there. I can't exactly remember where the diffuser was, but a really pivotal round there for Coastal to pick up, because now they're on match point. They have 2 rounds here to finish it out before it goes to overtime. So Bros Without Hose have to make something happen here and now, and it's going to be a tough fight for them, as they have not been able to find any success, or at least turn that success into a round win here on the attack.
Most definitely, and it does seem like they found their footing. It does seem like they finally understand what they want to do as a team to, really assess and attack this defense that is being put up them by Coastal Gaming. But the thing is, the question is rather, is it too late? Sure, they're only up 2 rounds, but it only is one little mistake that could cost you this whole map and potentially this whole series. Sure, this is Coastal's pick, and speaking of pick, it's actually Quartz to get the first pick, then traded by Russ onto Joe, and that is now your Capitao gone, and sure, you'll lose your Wamai, but in my opinion, losing those fire and smoke bolts is even more detrimental, but it doesn't matter because Quartz continues his rampage, but Russ makes sure that he answers it back and ties it up.
Down to a 3v3, but look at the HP for Coastal. Russ on really low HP. Engage, also less than half. He's also a 3 armor, so he's got a big hitbox. He's slow, and he can be shut down. And the only full health defender of Kobe, shut down by Mike W, who's finally coming alive. Nylek gets one onto Russ.
Wow.
Engage answering back, but barely any HP after that little engagement. He has to find 2 people in 1 minute and 5 seconds for Nylek and Snoopy to make something happen. As long as they don't take these as 1v1s, they can potentially win this, but we've seen Coastal be able to clutch things out, and it's not going to go their way. Finally, the attackers do find something. Nylek gets the shutout. We finally have something closer here on the attacking side, but it took a long time for Bros Without Hose to really kind of show up.
The thing that's working for Bros Without Hose, not only this round, but, the last round rather, is they're finding and just completely shutting down these players in the first initial entry engagements. And because of that, it makes it really easy for them to be in a good position going into that later round. Honestly, I'm kind of wondering in those last 2 rounds, if they didn't get the first 2 picks, or I guess, it was traded, but you still, in my opinion, got those first 2 picks. What position would they be if they didn't get those picks? What position would you be when you were hitting site in a 3v5 rather than a 4v3 or a 3v2? But nonetheless, that is what Bros Without Hose not only need, but that is what is leading to their success. And if they want to continue that success leading into this next round, especially attacking basement, they need to clear out not only the map, but make sure they find at least 1 pick going into the site, because you haven't seen a 5v5 when you hit the bomb site, and I don't think we're going to see it this map. That's not how Coastal is playing this defense. They're playing a very aggressive roam. They're putting, you could argue, all of their cards onto this roam, and it's really do or die. And if you don't get these initial kills, it looks like Coastal may lose the round.
Bandit normally plays on site to keep those Bandit batteries close to a wall, but Engage is taking them and potentially going for a spawn peek. We've been seeing a lot of it. As you were saying, there's been a lot of aggressive defense, and that's what we're talking about. Is there's always been some spawn peeks. There's always been some hop outs or some really aggressive swings. But Quartz potentially looking to get a little bit aggressive himself, already in car garage, dropping some of those lock bombs, pushing up towards the cellar wall and everything. But these feet holes make it really difficult for him to actually aggress onto that doorway. Quartz will think better of it. He's going to push up that west main instead to start taking some vertical control here. But he's all alone. If he runs into some roamers, which there's not any super close, but if Run keeps moving in this direction, they eventually will come to blows. And that could be really dangerous solo.
Yeah, I really like what Bros Without Hose is doing here. Sure, they're not doing a full map clear. That has been the problem for them. But they have realized that, okay, we need to play into this half court clear. We need to make sure we set up and hold these retake positions. As you can see, Quartz, rather than trying to just walk into site and get a couple kills, maybe even get traded, he actually goes, clears out the map, gets control, and then holds the retake position, making sure that any players that from Coastal, if they want to decide to actually try to go for the retake, try to flank upstairs onto these attackers that they're not going to be able to, and paired with Dokubi's calling device, they're going to be able to. And now, the Hose in the position to actually start to attack the site.
The utility dumps coming out. Nihilek up above, putting down those Koana hives. Meanwhile, the Ace canisters, the Selma canisters from Ace, getting the walls open. Though, are they going to aggress into sight off of all this utility, or is it just going to kind of be a little bit of a smoke show? We're going to see some EMPs coming out, the DMRs and the attackers chewing through the walls, some of those Capital bullets. A flash is going to be misthrown and ultimately waste a little bit of time to Bros Without Hose. We're going to be flashed, but they do get into sight. Nihilek with the big opening pick as he still has vertical coverage. Mike getting the diffuser down. If they can do this, they can get all their guns up. Joe will be taken out, but Snoopy finds another pick, and all go in the way of Bros Without Hose. The 2v4 with plant down, and time is ticking. Going to be up to Kobe and Rizza to find these kills. They find one. It's Kobe onto Mike W, who's been so good. We have another one. Quartz getting shut down. All of a sudden, things could go the way of Bros Without Hose, but Resident is still up here, or Resident is still alive. Nihilek up above, has the vertical control. Resident realizes he has to contest this. He has to fight. He's not going to be able to win it out. It's Nihilek that ultimately gets it. What a aggressive and ultimately maybe the best attacking round we have seen, I think, this entire map, is finally they all stack up, they all use their utility, and they're really explosive right into sight.
I keep cursing myself because going into that, prep phase, going into that round, I said, okay, so looking at our game, looking at our statistics, surely we're not going to be going into a 5v5 when they hit site. But that is exactly what they did. They hit site going into a 5v5, not necessarily, ignoring those two roamers over by bar side, but just kind of, working around it. And because of that, they realized that they were hitting site in a 5v3. They cut off the positions of those two defenders in wine, and they were able to get their player to go and plant. And because of that, they were in the positions. They still were holding those positions upstairs, cutting off those rotates. And because of that, the players on Coastal Gaming were forced to actually push more towards site. Eventually, you had that one player try to go for the retake upstairs, in that 1v1 situation. But with no time and the position favoring Nihilek, surely he got that round. And honestly, props to those last two players from Coastal. They were in a 2v5 situation, and I don't even really think Bros Without Hose really threw that 2v5. Those two players just played it beautifully, honestly.
They really did. I also do want to give a shout out as well to Nihilek, who started off this game not too hot, but he's really come alive in the last couple of rounds, putting up some good numbers and really playing objective for his team. I know he kind of had the easy job last round where you just play vertical, you just kind of wait for the attacker or the defenders to go and try and defuse, and then you have these really unfair angles against them. But still, he played it really well. He won out the 1v1. There's a lot of pressure on him, and his success here is kind of what's giving Bros Without Hose the success that they need to push this to overtime.
Yeah, and looking at us going into overtime where we find ourselves, Coastal Gaming, out of the 3 rounds we will play in overtime, 2 of those rounds they'll be playing defense. Statistically, the favored side, both teams winning a 4-2 defensive half. And going into this overtime, sure, it does favor Coastal, but it really does seem like that Bros Without Hose have finally found their footing going into the attack. Rather, with Coastal Gaming, those last 2 rounds, or rounds they won on attack rather, didn't really feel like very definitive wins for them.
It definitely did take them a little bit to warm up, but Bros Without Hose are here, and I hope to see another really good attack coming out of them. Right now, it's not been the most aggressive of attacks. They're kind of just waiting taking some map control, a lot of droning coming out. Once again, a lot of Brava being used to just grab some of the Val cams that have been ever so present on this map. Nyla potentially with a big pick through the floor, but he can't make it work. He gets shut down. He did manage to get some of his Selma canisters out, so it's not a complete loss of your hard breach utility, but still, that is a big loss, and there is no immediate trade, as they don't have the map control to really put pressure like that. But Kobe will get killed in another engagement. Russ, with some patience, shuts down Mike W. Once again, the top frag for Bros Without Hose taken out of everything, and they still don't have the map control to really punish and get these refrags when they need to.
Yet again, if you watch that engagement, which, you know, it was right on your screen, you should have been watching, Mike W just swung that with no intel. And it's not like they don't have drones. I believe they have, or before that, they had around 6 drones. They had all the drone utility, they had everything in their power to get it, but they just didn't. They're not doing their due diligence, and they just aren't really doing what they need to, and because of that, Coastal Gaming, rather, Bros Without Hose now find themselves in a 2v4 with only 20 seconds left, and now Snoopy in a horrible position, unable to clear out these defenders, and he isn't aware of running in the corner, and yet again, it's all up to Joe in the clutch on, guess what, at Vault Sites, Bar Gaming.
He can hop in, he has the fuser, but with such little time and with 3 defenders alive, him being shut down was the only outcome that was ever going to be. Engaged with the final kill again, and we have match point finally gained for Coastal here, who are hopping over to attack, seeing if they can't shut it out here, but Bros Without Hose on defense.
Even if Coastal Gaming do somehow lose this series, not saying they're on match point, I think on this map, they haven't, I wouldn't say officially, but they've really proven themselves, or I guess you could say proven their winning as it being very consistent. It being a consistent thing, not like a Linsanity run. This is a very consistent result that you're going to continue to see from them. They're not just, you know, a couple game qual team that just does good for no reason. They are a team as a 5 stacking, as together, that are just good, plain and simple. And not to take too much away from Bros Without Hose. It's not an E2 team, but nonetheless, they are a very good T3 team, higher T3 team. I would say they honestly, if they do play with this roster, they could push for E3. But Coastal Gaming, time and time again, they are showing up not only on the scoreboard, but against really good teams, really good rosters. It's not like they're playing nobodies or bums, and it's not because they're just running around shooting and they're all skill. Their overall team play is really great, and now they find themselves only 1 round away from winning their very first map.
Coastal doing something different. They haven't been able to win many attacks when they were all the way back in the first half of this map, so they're bringing some new stuff. We have Lion coming up. In addition to that, don't forget, also a Blitz and a Jackal. A huge amount of roam clear utility, a lot of really punchy executing stuff. Mike W gonna get taken out. He can only find a bit of damage on to Resident. Resident ultimately wins it out. They do now immediately realize that there's a Capcan on the board because they shut him down, and they're gonna get those Capcan traps. I was gonna say that I like the late Capcan hit coming out all the way in the final defensive round here, Bros Without Hose, just because you won't expect it if you're Coastal. But now that they found Capcan, they are looking, they're checking the doors, and they have man advantage, and there's no roam presence to give Bros Without Hose a trade here.
Yeah, no roam presence whatsoever, and Quartz is just forced to run away, hoping he's not shot in the back. But, as you see, not only was he being pushed by a blitz, but he also had a second attacker in his blue holding his cross. Even if he did get away, he was eventually going to be killed. And, looking at this round, it's not just a blitz random play, just throwing it out there, hoping they catches Bros Without Hose off guard. It's aggression, but structured aggression at that, and that's why Coastal Gaming has been so successful in not only the qualifiers, but continuing into the group stage, is that not only are they a very aggressive team, but it's structured. All of their aggression is planned, they understand, and they have control of every engagement that they're putting themselves into.
They still got to get this wall to sight open, though, on the first floor, which means they need they need top floor control. Nylek is still holding on, and he could potentially play spoiler. He's in a tough position. He has these key barriers to make it easy for him to survive. He's going to be able to at least get some damage on the Resident while not himself getting punished. He's able to escape. Finally, Snoopy, his backup is shut down, so it's a 5v2. Resident probably hasn't fallen all the way, or Resident will follow Nylek all the way back down to sight. And Nylek is going to keep trying trying to aggress. They finally get the blitz shut out, but at what cost?
With only 40 seconds left, Joe finding a wild shot onto run, and he's in a 3v2, but he's in a position to deny it, but it doesn't matter. It's Kobe and Russ to not only shut down the round, but win them the very first map in 2 rounds in a row on overtime at that. And we're continuing to see Coastal show why they've had so much success in this series, in this tournament alone too.
Yep, this was their map pick. We talked about how they had lost this one earlier, but it was a close one, and it's another fairly close game, and Coastal ultimately does emerge successful this time. So they clearly had some plans going into it, even when their attacks were shaky, but that final attack from them was probably the best attack we had seen all day this time.
I mean, honestly, yeah, that was the best attack. Not only because they had a blitz play, not only because the blitz play in itself just worked. With a blitz play, it's 50-50, honestly, especially with a lot of teams. Sometimes it doesn't work, and other times it can work. It's honestly just a throw up. It's a coin toss. But that round, not only did they have a blitz play, but they had the players, they had the crosses, they had structured aggression around that aggression behind the blitz to support it, to make sure it did work. They didn't just bring out blitz because it was like the last round. They were just trying to catch them off guard. It was something they actually planned, something they actually practiced, and it showed. Every engagement that blitz was in, he usually had a player right behind him, because if he did die, he was able to get the refrag up until that 4v2 when they started to hit sight. And it just really goes to show why Coastal Gaming has won so many games.
Yeah, they had some really impressive stuff coming out. We got another map coming up after this, though. We're going to Skyscraper, which, in my opinion, Skyscraper is even more defender-sided.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be really difficult for the attacks to find anything, and I think Coastal look a bit better on attack. That's been reflected in their attacking win percentage. Bros Without Hose, this is going to be a bit of a scary place for them, because if they lose that map, if they don't have any good attacks, and it's all just down to defense, I don't see them winning that map, and I see the series ending just like that, an easy, or a relatively easy 2-0 for Coastal. But this is this is their map pick. They didn't choose Skyscraper, so once again, we're hoping that they have strats that they're going to bring out, that they know what they're doing there. But I doubt that Coastal are going to be completely unprepared either.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be unprepared, but the thing is, we haven't seen Coastal play Sky whatsoever. So we don't know how not only does Coastal play Sky, maybe they're just a horrible Sky team and they just accidentally let this map slip. Maybe they don't even know what kind of team they are. To be honest, they might not even have played it in scrims together. While this is, I guess you could say a T4 now, maybe even a T3 team, it's still a roster that is going to scrim so much. And going into this match, we compared 2 players, Mike W and Gav Running, but it was actually Resisted to come out with those entry kills, going 4-2 on the entry engagements. Not only does he have, more entry engagements than anybody else, but that's what won them so many attacking rounds, was those early engagements. And not only that, he also was really aggressive in those initial first engagements on defense, because not only was he actually winning it, but he was actually the one on defense to initiate it on the attackers. And you don't see that a whole lot, even in this defender meta. Usually it's the attackers who actually, engage in that entry first engagement onto the defenders. But not only did Coastal Gaming, but Resisted is a perfect example of how aggressive and how their aggressive playstyle is structured.
Yeah, and Mike W had a good game too. He had a lot of picks, but we're really looking at the entry stats here, because his entry stats just aren't all that good. Another thing I want to point out too is just there was one plant from both teams.
Yeah.
That was it. There were 2 total plants that whole map. That was really an aggressive defender-sided map where the defense were just moving all over the place. It was a very bloody fight. There wasn't a whole lot of sight play in general. It never really got to sight. It was a lot of engagements above, a lot of engagements off site, a lot of spawn peaks, that sort of thing. And neither team really did a great job of matching the defense, but ultimately Coastal did finally managed to drive the tempo of the attack, and that's, I think, what won it out for them.
Yeah, and that's not a surprise. Going into this match, if you combined every single plant through the group stage from both teams, three times plant successfully went down. And not only that, but Coastal Gaming, they had a 7-5 matchup, an overtime matchup, and then you had Bros That Hose in a best of 3. So you had plenty of opportunity. It just goes to show that in this current meta and how we're seeing Xenon being played this season, I don't know what you're calling it. Is this a certain term? I don't know. But the thing is, we're seeing that it's just those early engagements that are deciding the round, because we're not even seeing a bomb being able to be in a position to be put down.
Yeah, for sure. And we got potentially some more really aggressive stuff coming up. We got Skyscraper right after this. We're going to throw to a quick break. So go get something to eat, but don't go too far, because we will be right back after this. All right, welcome back. I wasn't lying when I said it was just a short break. We're here for map 2 between Coastal Gaming and Bros Without Hose. The first one, pretty close map, really competitive, ultimately did go the way of Coastal Gaming, and I think it ultimately came down to just the defensive side was so strong. It really was who can win just 1 or 2 attacking sides more, and that was Coastal. And we are going to an even more defender-sided fight here on Skyscraper.
Yeah, going into this map, this is Bros That Hose map pick. But the thing is, aside from Joe playing it twice in recent times and losing both times, we don't have a whole lot of knowledge of what these teams, not only these teams, but Coastal, we have not seen them play it both in qualifiers and the group stage so far. So it's kind of, a what-if map. The one thing we do know that going into this map is that this is one of the most defender-sided maps currently in the game in the recent past, I'd say 2 to 3 months. And Coastal starting on that defense, obviously a no-brainer. Bringing out that Ying ban yet again. Ying going to continue to be the most banned, not only attacker, but operator in the XGS Spring Burst so far. I really want to see more different bans, but I'm also really excited to see if maybe, Dokkaebi being banned, and now we're actually going to have that Flores being able to be brought out.
Yeah, not too surprising here. I would like to see some more unique bans, but at the same time, you do get why Ying is always banned. With the defense as strong as it is, Ying kind of became that go-to of just blind everyone, push in. The defenders can't use that really strong utility that they bring if they're dead. And so that's the whole point of the Ying ban. We're also going to see Valk being taken off. Valk was played a lot on Chalet. Tons of Valk play. So that coming out is maybe a response to how much Valk we were seeing, as just the information being fed was really strong. And maybe Bros Without Hose don't want Coastal bringing that Valkyrie again.
That Tubarel also being banned. Just yet again, aside from the Valkyrie, that Tubarel being banned, that Ying being banned, and also even that Dokkaebi being banned, it's just operators that are being banned out because teams just don't want to deal with them. These aren't bans being brought out that are specifically being banned to directly counter a specific team that are playing today. It's honestly just bans that just really make it annoying to both attack and defend, mostly attacking. But I really love to see that, Intel ban, that Dokkaebi being gone, then paired up being backed up with that IQ being gone. It really goes to show that Bros Without Hose is trying to take away and deny as much intel from Coastal Gaming, as when Coastal Gaming did have a lot of intel, not only did they win rounds, but they felt really free. For example, Russ, when attacking I believe it was, when he was attacking Bar Gaming, he took out main cam and then just ran into sight. That just is a clear-cut example of when Coastal, not only do they take away intel, but when they have it, they feel so comfortable to make any play they want.
This is Bro's map pick, so Coastal choose what side they start on, and of course, being as defender-sided as we've been hyping this map up to be, Coastal here on defense and going for an early spawn peek with the Warden actually shooting out a lot, potentially to cover Recited here, who can then get an engagement, but he won't be able to find a pick. He was maybe half an inch away from finding the head of an attacker there for an early opening pick, but all he's going to escape out of there with is a quarter of his health being taken away. So already, off the bat, Coastal playing it aggressive, keeping the pace up from how they were playing the last map.
Coastal right now is just making it a headache for Bros Without Hose to attack. Every time, every doorway, every window that they see and come upon when they come out of sight, you have to be wary. You have to be careful because there could be a Coastal player behind that window and door. And sure, maybe sometimes it will result with an early pick, but it continues to just add pressure to Bros Without Hose. It continues to just really stress them out. And going into the late round, not only are they being denied picks, being denied intel, but they've already had to play such a stressful game because Coastal Gaming, right from the get-go, is just pushing that aggression every inch, every second they get the chance to.
Bros Without Hose have at least taken some decent map control over on the eastern portion of the map. They've taken office and everything, but going prone like that and peeking an angle is pretty slow, and Russ is able to punish Quartz, take him out, and he's able to just stick on this position. He's got a bulletproof shield. He has a DMR with a 1.5. He can take these long angles and shoot and not have to worry about damage fall off or anything, as if he were engaging with a SMG. Perhaps finally they will get rid of his bulletproof shield, though. Those Rotero drones coming out, as Flores is not banned this time around, so they are able to scare Rust off, but not too far. He's sticking around and still just contesting up here.
And for Bros Without Hose right now, they don't have a whole lot of map control. They don't even have control of drums. Sure, you pushed out of Dragon, you have control, but you still have this player holding their cross down the hallway, so they're not going to be able to actually push and rush into sight without at least taking some damage and being punished for it. And it doesn't look like Bros Without Hose currently have a plan or any player in a position to clear out this drum player, and because of it, Coastal is just not only in a comfortable position, but actually it's Mike W to rotate and flank up stairs to get that pick onto engage, and now that is that drum player gone.
Mike W was top rank for them last time, so he might have to be the one to come out and do big stuff, but Killfeed ultimately going the way of Coastals. They find 2 more picks, but Mike W tying it out. He will get traded by Run, and it's a 2v1. It's going to be up to Snoopy to find 2 picks, but with almost 0 seconds left, he's not going to be able to find anyone, much less win out this round. Recited, as we've now learned his name is, not Resident or Resisted. Sorry about that. He shuts it down. Pretty solidly played stuff there. Nothing too surprising, I think, from Coastal, and kind of how you'd expect a map like this to go.
While it did end up being a little bit closer, pushing it all the way to a 2v2, which then led to that 2v1 and to that last player from Bros dying, it was really because of those hero plays. It was because Bros Without Hose realized that on the attack, they didn't have any structured aggression. And then, for example, you had Mike W. He was kind of just forced to make a play, rotating up those stairs, getting rid of that drum player by pushing from behind. And then you had Nylek just kind of running into Geisha, getting a pick, eventually being traded. The only time, and the only reason that Bros Without Hose actually had a chance in that round was because of these solo hero plays that were kind of forced out. Those plays were not planned. They were not a result of, okay, hey guys, let's do this. It was a result of a player realizing that nothing was being done, and they said, okay, we just have to do something if we want to have a chance. And because of that, because there was no structure to that overall push and site execute, it resulted in a very easy 2v1 for Coastal.
Attackers' objective is to locate a bomb.
Yep, and now we have kind of a unique lineup being brought out. We're seeing a castle as well as the zombies, so there's a lot of bulletproof walls that are going to be set up. We also have a Solus to potentially play below, or not below, but potentially just lurk around and find all this information, as well as a dock. This is a unique setup we're bringing in, and I hope we're going to see some cool stuff from Coastal. But we also got Mike W on the Amaru. Hopefully we'll see some just explode right on in. You know, that could be so dangerous. They're getting some walls open first before they do any sort of explode onto site or explode onto some really contested area. Snoopy, the first one to get into an engagement, about half of his health will be taken away. He's just gonna go up above, hang out on a roof where he's a bit more safe, use those Rotero drones, be safe, get as much utility out of them as he can, and that's why we're seeing the Amarus. Mike W can get up there really quickly and just start to apply pressure, and you know for a fact that the defenders of Coastal have heard that grapple hook, and they now are kind of eyeing that side of the map. They're eyeing those footholds. It just puts some good phantom pressure up there. They're so afraid that the Amaru is going to come right in. It's ultimately Quartz to get the first engagement onto Engage, shutting down the mute. And that's a good opening pick, because so far there's not been any immediate trade. Meanwhile, they are flashing, droning out, and pinching, running. That's a great pick and a great way to handle that from Joe to put this thing to a 5v3 for Bros Without Hose.
I really love Bros Without Hose over on the opposite side of the map, away from the site, bringing out that 3-man push. You had one player on window, actually Mike W, taking the words out of my mouth, just making a solo play there, and he's resulted in a kill onto Recited. But as I was saying before Mike W interrupted me, is that, you know, they had a 3-man push. They had those crossfires. They didn't give the isolated plays, and sure, Coastal Gaming did have 2 players, but they were able to isolate the players, and they continued to isolate these players in these 1v1 situations, and that's because it's a 2v5. It's because Coastal Gaming has no choice but to take these 1v1 engagements. And speaking of Joe winning the round in a 1v1 engagement onto Russ in a great answer back from Bros Without Hose, and nonetheless a flawless round.
Yeah, a great attack there from Bros Without Hose. Really impressed with it. I kind of expected them to maybe not wake up on attack for a couple more rounds, but they just came in swinging. They had an excellent pitch, especially when they were getting rid of, I believe it was Russ, maybe, no, it was Runnin, who was hiding out in Geisha. They had 2 drones on it. They had flashbangs going off. They had the window and the wall thermited open, so they could just push in. He had no idea where they were coming from. They took him out. Really well played, really well executed. That's the type of coordination that you need to have if you're going to be a successful attacking team in this game.
Most definitely, you know, that coordination. And, you know, one thing I want to talk about with Coastal, and it's going to continue to be a theme for how they play this defense, is that early spawn peeking. You know, I was just on Twitter an hour ago, and I saw Recited in ranked kill Grixer from just a random hole in warehouse on I believe it was Night Haven Labs. You're probably wondering, well, why are you saying this? Because they're just playing this game like ranked. They're so comfortable, they don't need to bring out these crazy strats. They're just playing it like ranked. They're trusting each other in these engagements. Even if a player is down, they don't get scared, they don't fall back, they continue to push that aggression, and because of that, Bros Without Hose, even if they get a pick, they're not given a break. Bros Without Hose have to do and take every engagement, every bit of map control, and Coastal Gaming, even when they're losing rounds, they're not giving them away easily, and they're not giving them away, honestly, just really quickly either.
Joe, we're following up that Geisha wall, potentially looking to throw it open, but it's already been punched open by that kind of passive melee ability that Aruni can bring, and that's going to lead to some damage going on to both Quartz and Joe. Quartz really low. Recited is the one doing it, and so they're going to be droning him out, but he's already run off. He's got some drones for his trouble. He's gotten to do a lot of damage. They're trying to pinch him with Nyla coming up really quickly from those black stairs. and will find him. A great way. Reset didn't even realize where he was getting shot from. They do manage to flush Reset out of there, pinch him off. Really well played once again from Bros Without Hose, who now have to try and continue that sort of pressure. But Nylek, this long angle, the 1.5 on the DMR, I talked about that being so deadly. And that's ultimately a great shutoff for Russ to find as he does even the score math.
Yeah, that was just, I wouldn't say lucky, that was just like a really nice engagement. I mean, as you saw, Russ was thrown out. Nylek knew exactly where his position was, and Russ was just way better in that gunfight, and arguably had the better gun, had the jump on him. It doesn't matter. That just goes to show that Coastal, as individual players, are just so good. And oh, that play by Mike W with the buck below to get rid of that Mira, it is really nice. And with a minute going in, it is a 4v4, and honestly, with the sight in with the Nylek gun, I would say that's a bit of an even trade, because, you know, Ash did do some superb utility, did get a pick onto Recited, actually, and going into those last 50 seconds, Bros Without Hose and Coastal Gaming, too, find themselves with a very unfamiliar scene in this last 40 seconds, that being a tied man count, that being a 4v4 at that.
Vertical pressure coming from underneath running as he's gonna start feeling that master key for Buck to do a little bit of damage in there. Ultimately, utility-wise, Coastal doesn't have much. They had a C4, but they don't have one anymore, so they really have no denial. But they're gonna take one pick, it'll be quickly answered back as Mike W doing so good again on this map finds another. But look at the HP. Mike W force really low. They will manage to get Engage out though. That's Snoopy with the pick. It's a 2v3, but damage gonna befall Mike W. He will go down. Quartz is gonna have to push in too. Will his damage make him so come in? Will run him with another pick. It's all gonna be up to Snoopy, but he just can't do it. He doesn't know where everyone else is, and running with some big picks there.
In the first initial round, even though it was early, even though trades and kills were being traded back to back to back, and we found ourselves in a 3v3, Coastal had the upper hand because Bros Without Hose not only did they deny intel, but denied Bros Without Hose finding out these last couple of defenders, and because of that, they had the jump. They knew exactly where Bros Without Hose were pushing from, and Bros Without Hose had no idea where Coastal was. They had no idea where these players were positioned, and because of that, those last two players on Coastal were able to hold a really strong crossfire. And honestly, it was just up to those last two players on Bros to just really walk into those crossfires and die. And it really goes to show, even when Bros Without Hose has somewhat of a successful, you know, early round on the scoreboard, getting rid of players, it's the denial of intel and overall utility that Coastal is doing that's really winning them these rounds.
Also, just how long it took. Coastal did, Bros Without Hose did get that opening pick. Nylek got it onto Recited after they managed to get Bandit out of Geisha. But Bandit being in Geisha, attacking out onto balcony, just aggressing, slows things down and forces Bros Without Hose to kind of reallocate some of their resources, commit to a pinch on the other side of the map, and it really just slows things down. And when time is of the essence, those seconds count, and it really comes back to hurt them, just as Nylek is going to get hurt by Russ. A little bit of that, once again, a Maru's passive ability there to create those easy rotates and those easy holes, allowing her to just go out and find a pick, being used so much utility here.
Nylek just being really angry, and it just goes to show that Coastal Gaming is just really getting into the mental of Bros Without Hoses because of these really weird aggressive plays that Bros Without Hoses are just not expecting. They're not aware of these positions, and they're just completely caught off guard. It's just honestly not a whole lot of utility, not a whole lot of intel is being used to get these picks for Coastal. It's honestly just these really aggressive ranked plays that are just working and that are not being punished. And because they're not being punished, Coastal is feeling really confident in continuing to put themselves in this position. And while they're not being punished, they'll continue to be here. Recited is going to be down and eventually finished off by Mike W. Mike W almost getting the second player, but so far Coastal has done a great job of just holding off the overall attack. Sure, they've lost now 2 players, but there's not a whole lot of map control given to Bros Without Hose.
Snoopy will get his first pick for this map as he does find one onto Russ. That's a good person to shut out. Engage yet still find his first pick. So as long as you take out those players that are doing really good, like Excited, like Russ, it can be difficult for Coastal to potentially recover here if they don't have those big fragging operators and those big fragging players going. Of course, it's still pretty early, so Engage still has lots of time to light up here, and he's still holding on to a valuable piece of map. Even though he's not getting kills, being right here, this pressure is just preventing Bros Without Hose from pushing forward, and once again, time is starting to dwindle.
Bro, Engage is just foaming at the mouth. He wants his pick onto Mike W so bad. He's like, please, just swing me. I'm tired of sitting here. But it just goes to show that, you know, how aggressive and just, you know, how Coastal and Engage, rather, are just holding themselves back. They're not being over aggressive. They're not being overzealous. And because of that, they're not being punished for it. And Bros Without Hose are being given absolutely no map control, given no picks, and it's just making it so difficult. And now, with 20 seconds left, Jolts has not only tied it, but he's gone 2 picks. Joe following it up, bringing it to a 2v2, but they're not in a position to win. They don't even have Case, and it's Jolts yet again in the position. He took those 2 players down to shut down the entire round, and now we find ourselves tied up.
Once again, Bros Without Hose being a victim of the clock here, as they just aren't able to have enough time to drone things out, enough time to know where the angles are being held from by the defenders, and they are just forced to walk blind into sight. Plenty of head holes opened up, plenty of foot holes opened up, so many angles onto them. You're completely defenseless as an attacker when you're walking in there, because there is an angle being held by someone who is in a reinforced room a hallway away, and you're just going to get shut down.
And shutdown is what we're seeing. We're not seeing Coastal Gaming, my bad, they're up 2 rounds. I thought Bros Without Hose won another one. I mean, it just goes to show how close it is. No, the scoreline doesn't show how close this map has been so far. And honestly, you know, Bros Without Hose getting that first initial round on the attack, you know, isn't a bad thing. I could see them maybe even tying up here, but if they do go into their defensive half, going in 4-2, that wouldn't be bad. But the thing is, they're just not winning these engagements, and because Coastal are not only winning the engagements, but they're just wasting so much time, as we talked about. And by the time that Bros Without Hose is hitting site, not only do they not have map control, but they have no intel and they have no utility left, so they just kind of have to hit it raw.
We're also going to see if Bros Without Hose can even get that second round in order to get to that 2-4 split for their attacking end. If they don't manage to get it, if Coastal run away with this and take it 5-1, almost certainly going to go the way of Coastal in the end, because that would just be a bit too dominant.
You know, dominance is what we've not only seen in the series, but what we're seeing right now. And sure, you know, the drones are coming out, but there's not a player behind this drone. There's not a player behind this intel, and that's the problem. When these drones are being brought out, because they're shot out and because there's not a player of it, it's somewhat of a wasted drone. Because you don't have a player, not only do you lose that drone, but that defender that you just droned out is allowed to just rotate into a different position, in that utility and intel that you just got is essentially useless. So I really want to see Bros Without Hose not only sending in more drones, but having players behind those drones so they can capitalize off of that intel and get these first initial picks.
Russ tucked in here with the iron sights on the MP7 will be shut down. Mike W not taking any prisoners. Good opening pick there. Once again, we were talking about Russ having a pretty good game. He's doing a pretty good job. Mike W though having a really good game. Force with one, Nylek with another, all going the way of Bros Without Hose, who are guaranteeing themselves that 4-2 split for this side, or I should say 2-4 split. Still 2 members of Coastline up though, but a clutch and a half is what they would have to mount in order to take this round back.
You know, a clutch and a half is most definitely, but the thing is, you know, the time is dwindling down. Bros Without Hose somewhat stalling up a little bit because it looks like they're scared. They're not aware of where these 2 players are, and they're scared of them retaking and shutting down this defense. You see this one player on the side of Nylek on Ash just waiting for the player. He does hear him. He swings just a little bit too early, so he's going to give his position away. He's going to run off trying to save his life. But all this is really doing for Bros Without Hose now is just wasting time and just making it even easier for Coastal to come up with this potential clutch. And now we see Engage trying to retake, and he wins the fight, but it's Mike W to shut down his teammate on Jolts, and now it's all up to Engage in a 1v4 with Bomb down. This is near unwinnable, and now Bros Without Hose surely is 1 round closer to tying it up.
great round there. I really like what I was seeing. And in addition, when you don't know where the roamers are and you're worried about potentially losing it, I like the idea of just go for plant while you have a lot of time. Don't wait until the last 15 seconds to start putting diffuser down, because then if you have to get off diffuser for whatever reason, if the roamers start to fall on you or descend on you, then you have zero time to re-put that diffuser down. So I liked what they did. They had a minute left. They went for site, put the diffuser down, forced those roamers to return to site. Essentially get rid of their advantage, force them to come back, and it worked out well. And we don't see a whole lot of plants with these teams and with this tournament in general, and so I think that's a good way to play it, is force objective. A lot of these guys aren't super used to having to come back to site and play for the diffuser.
Yeah, in that situation, Coastal, after a couple of rounds, their over-aggression and just aggression in general was punished. Bros Without Hose really feeling what Coastal was doing in their overall aggression, feeling when they got too aggressive and when they started to play back, and because of that, they were able to essentially, somewhat bait out those swings, bait out those over-aggressive plays, and because of that, they were resulted in the very first 2 picks, leading up even into a 2v5, and because of that, you just put Coastal into a situation that was near unwinnable. And then you had the player on the side of Nilek. Sure, he didn't get that pick on the initial engagement, but he baited out that player, revealed his position, and that enabled his team to then hit the site and put the plant down. And Quartz, for the very first round in this map, he wins that spawn peak engagement. Nilek trying to get that vertical, but it's just not going to work. And even when Coastal do lose these initial 1v1s and these initial entry kills, you can see players like Jolt continuing to be aggressive, not falling off, and not giving Bros Without Hose anything more than they've already taken.
And that is also a nasty angle that Jolt is holding. He's used one of his impact grenades to open up part of the floor, to look through the floor, through the window. It's really hard to fight back if you're an attacker or to counter that angle. And I really like that sort of stuff. And also they're reinforcing the wall next to him. They have a bandit battery next to him. They're just insulating these defenders. But Mike W is having a great game, bringing out that Blitz again. Blitz was pretty successful, and they brought Blitz all the way over on the coastline. Mike W with another one, a hit shot, kind of a random headshot that he gets there. That's crazy. Jolts does answer back onto it, but Joe is there to trade it out. Joe also putting the diffuser down. Engage is going to throw this C4, but it's not going to find anything. It will scare the diffuser off, but Quartz knows now exactly where Engage is and shuts him out.
I believe now we have the exact same amount of plants that we had in total from last map, which is crazy. And it really goes to show that Bros Without Hose are really changing up how they're approaching this game overall. Not only are they changing their strategies, but they're just changing up their overall objective. Earlier on, they're trying to go for those initial engagements, just trying to honestly win by kills, but then they realized that, okay, with a map like Skyscraper, it's very disconnected. We don't have to actually aggress on those roamers. We can try to go, especially for a map I believe it's called Offices, yeah. Like a site like Offices, you can kind of go for a more direct site take and really move around those roamers and not risk those, risk losing those early engagements. And that's exactly what happened. And I really love the change up. And going into their defensive half, they already have 3 rounds.
Yeah, very impressive stuff from Bros Without Hose to tie it up. I mean, we thought for certain that this was going to be kind of a defender map, and we were just going to see Coastal kind of walk away with it, maybe 4-2, 5-1 potentially. But no, we're going to defense. Bros Without Hose are tied up right now. This is their map that they picked. They potentially can really lock it down right now, dig their heels in, stand strong, and withstand these attacks from Coastal and win this map.
My question is, obviously with that Valkyrie being banned and that Tuberale being banned, and sure, we're only in the first round of the second half, but are we going to see a more attacker-sided? We've seen this aggressive operator lineup. We're seeing Engage bringing that Capital. We're seeing the Amaru paired with the Blitz, and as we saw in the last map, these Blitz plays aren't all relying on the Blitz to win these initial 1v1 engagements. He has players, he has utility to back him up. But the thing is, if he rushes in and they don't clear out Joe, he could get a free C4 pick that could honestly take out all 3 of those players if timed right.
C4 going out, not going to find anyone, but Amaru going to come in, not going to be able to get the pick. Ultimately, Joe wins it out. Joe with the second pick on Recited, shutting down the Blitz and the Amaru. The entire rush stopped dead in its tracks. Jolts will find one, but Jolts trades him right back out. Failure for Coastal, who now it's all down to Russ and Engage in a 2v4. Lots of HP taken away from some of the members of Bros Without Hose, but without your like aggressive rushing guys, it's going to be tough to recover from that. Russ does his best to start the recovery, shutting down Mike W, who once again has been so instrumental for the success of Bros Without Hose, because he is already on 10 kills.
Not only is he on 10 kills, but he's most of the time the player to actually engage in these entry engagements. But that round, it was all up to Joe, which, to be fair, in his favor, he didn't initiate it. The overall entry engagement that round, where he got those 2 picks, first onto the Amaru, then onto Recited, was the actual attack pushing onto him. And now, with a minute left, that blitz play hasn't worked out. Sure, you're only down 1 player in the overall man count, but you don't have whole lot of intel. You're forced to now put out more drones. You don't have map control. And if you're Bros Without Host, you know exactly where they're going to be coming from. There's only really one direction you can come from. And Joe in a really good position, but he's caught out. But Snoopy putting it down all up to now Russ.
That pinch with the grenade and then having one of the attackers catch Joe's rotate really good, but unfortunately they're not going to be able to recover from it completely. As yeah, you did see Engage go down. It's all going to be down to Russ. He's going to be finished off by Snoopy. I really liked what we were seeing from the attack there. I mean, I like it anytime you see like a Maru come out, a Blitz come out for these really explosive rushes, but sometimes it just doesn't work. Sometimes you just rush in and the defenders are looking in the right direction and your speed comes to kind of bite you in the back because you don't have enough time to really react or get as much information as they really needed. It's just the risk with rushes. That's just how it is.
It's a coin flip. It's a 50-50. You just kind of got to rely on the defenders not expecting it, being in somewhat bad positions, in positions that are not going to be able to put them in a position to kill the players, and Joe being in the perfect position. There's no better position he could have been aside from being mid black stairs. He got the kill onto Recited on the Blitz, and first initially getting it onto Amaru, trying to catch him off guard. So it was just a coin flip that, you know, they lost. They bet on the heads and they got tails. But honestly, that whole round goes to show how Coastal is kind of not necessarily changed up, but been forced to not play their game. You know, initially, as we saw in the first map in the last round, they brought out that blitz play, but it was, you know, structured blitz play. They had intel, they had drone economy, people droning out those roamers. They had a player holding across on the blitz in case he lost it, but that round, they just kind of sent a blitz in, and sure, they had flashes, but they didn't have a player on the cross. They did have an Amaru, but it was just kind of a trick play that didn't work out. And if I'm Coastal, don't play Bros' game. Do not play their game. Continue to play your game. You can continue to play very aggressive, but you have to keep and make sure it's structured.
Again, I just want to harp on how aggressive this defense has been. We see both Mike W and Nylek in this round going for spawn peaks here. Or I guess Nylek is got the barricade prepped for an easy hop out. Meanwhile, Mike W was doing a spawn peak. These guys are playing as aggressive as they can on defense, just because if they can slow down Coastal every single engagement, Coastal will never have enough time to fully get to site and have, you know, coverage and map control and defeat.
Yeah, and now Bros Without Hose with the lead, while it is only one round, it really looks like they have complete control of this map in the game going into this series so far. And right now, Coastal, not only just last round, but just looking in this early round, they haven't really found an answer. You see a player going downstairs trying to clear out Mike, but he has no intel on where Mike is. It's just kind of just trying to, you know, really get these players on the defense to run out, really try to get them to over-aggress, and that's exactly what happens. Mike W, because of that run out, he's caught out by Engage. The thing is, of course, he may not see the player, and no, he doesn't see Recited. And finally, Coastal, not only have they found an answer back, but they found 2 picks coming off of it.
Some of that aggression on the part of Bros Without Hose punishing them a little bit as they're just getting caught out. But Snoopy will find Recited, and Snoopy will find Running. So that's 2 major picks. Snoopy with a third going crazy. Joe finally gets one. What is happening? This was supposed to be Coastal's round, but Bros Without Hose somehow get punished for their aggression and then say, nah, let's double it up. They get more aggressive and they punish Coastal for not being aggressive enough. It's all of a sudden down to Jolts. He's outside. He has 40 seconds left. He has to go against Joe, Nylek, and Snoopy. Snoopy popping off, Joe having a good game, Nylek doing pretty good too. There's just almost no chance of him making this happen.
Yeah, Coastal initially getting the first 2 picks, but Rose That Ho said, we'll do you one better. We'll get you 4 picks unanswered completely. And it questions, like, where were the players going for this score? Where were the players? Why were they not in a position to actually get the repicks, get the refrags? And why is Jolts in a 1v3? I'm questioning why that happened. I think Coastal Gaming right now is questioning themselves too, because that was just a round that should not have gone the way it did. They just were not aware of the positions with Bros Without Hose. And not only that, but they were in they had a 2-man count. They were finding those defenders initially. It's just a really curious round. I'm not exactly sure what went wrong there. Obviously, it was with their intel, the lack of that being. But now, Bros Without Hose find themselves 1 round away from match point. And now they're going to be going down to Kitchen, which, obviously it's not one of the more favored sites, but it's still a very good site for the defense.
I think maybe what happened is Coastal saw how aggressive Bros Without Hose were playing, and they pushed in and sacrificed their own safety to punish some of those aggressors, like Mike W. and I believe it was Quartz, who had run out and had jumped out. Coastal pushed in really quickly. They managed to secure those 2 picks, but they in turn had to sacrifice their map position, and they found themselves completely in enemy territory. Yeah, they got those 2 picks, but now they're surrounded by angles that they haven't cleared. They don't know where the remaining defenders are, and those sacrifices ultimately punished them way harder than they punished Mike W. and Quartz for.
Yeah, and it just really goes to show that, last game, I wouldn't say it was one player's, or rather one team's game. I don't think any team really set the tempo. I think, going into overtime, Coastal just took it away. It wasn't Coastal's game. Chalet wasn't Coastal's map. They went into overtime on their map, but that shouldn't have happened, really, if you're looking at Coastal. But on this second map, sure, it is 5-3. It's not like, really far away. It is somewhat still a close game. But every round, it really seems like Bros Without Hose is that team setting the tempo, setting the overall mood of each round, and pushing these engagements, and not only pushing them, but also winning them. And with a minute left, not a whole lot happening, but that's been a continued theme after that first blitz push. Just did not work. It really looks like Coastal is starting to play a little more passive, not because they want to, but necessarily because that's their answer back. That's their solution to what they've been doing.
Snoopy is holding on to this really dangerous position here, and he's going to be able to contest multiple angles, including vertical ones there, unless he's shut down. He's still good, but Quartz is not. They're going to find that minefield, will shut him down, and look at this peek. Peeks straight into what looks like 3 attackers. Mike W getting shut down by Russ. Once again, we're in a 5v3. Hopefully Coastal learned their lesson, and they're going to now take a second, make sure they can get their ducks in a row. Don't over-aggress now. You have the lead. You can play the trade game. You lose one, but then you take one of them, and they can play that until they win this. But Snoopy here, once again, this power position, he controls Geisha, he controls the Geisha window, the Geisha wall, as well as this little vertical angle he has down onto Barbecue and Kitchen.
And so far, not only has he not been identified, a drone going in, surely he's going to be able to see that he's there. Now we can see Jolt swinging in, applying pressure, aware of his position. Now he feels a little bit more comfortable to be pushed out. Nylek being initially pushed back by the air jab, but coming out with the win. Joe in yet another really, odd position, taking control from Coastal, and with 40 seconds left, it looks like they're starting to really struggle, but it doesn't matter, because Runnin runs over Don. Snoopy shuts him down, and now they have top map control. Pushing downstairs right now, Joe in a position completely cut off from his teammate. Surely this is going to be a really easy 1v2 engagement for Coastal.
And Nylek on really low HP, so he can go down pretty quickly. Joe is going to be the one they have to watch out for, especially with time going down. Joe can get one. Can he get a second? They have these angles opened up. Nylek with one. Russ is down. Engage is left. What are you doing, Coastal? This can't keep happening. They get one pick, but do they have enough time to make anything else happen? No, they don't. Somehow, Bros Without Hose win it again. This should not be happening.
Mike W saying the exact same thing. Good attack, and if you couldn't get it, he's being sarcastic. That was not a good attack. Honestly, that early half going into the mid round was a really good attack. Even though they did lose that one player from that Fenrir, Buck was right there to trade it back. But the thing was, Bros Without Hose doing the exact same thing that Coastal was doing to them. Sure, they lost those early engagements, but Coastal, or Bros Without Hose rather, denied them so much information and utility. By the time they hit site, they didn't know where those two last players were, and they didn't have the intel to flush them out. And because of that, Bros Without Hose running away with a round, 2 rounds in a row that they should not have won. I don't want to say Coastal is throwing, because saying a team is throwing is only in certain situations where a team is just completely falling apart. And sure, they did fall apart, but it was because they were lacking intel. It's not because they weren't using it. It's because they simply just didn't have it.
Yeah, this would have been a situation where I would have really liked to see Coastal with a bit more pep in their step. I know that I said that Coastal should take a second, get their ducks in a row, and they did that, but then, once again, you run the risk of once you slow down a little bit to just settle down, it can take some time to get back up to a good speed, and that's exactly what happened. Is they slowed down too much, they lost all of their momentum, and weren't able to do anything. Swampy coming out, Engage taking damage, Mike W able to escape without any sort of scratch, but unfortunately he does not find his kill. We haven't really seen a whole lot of successful spawn peaks, just a lot of spawn peaks in general, though.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Coastal definitely setting that tempo on their defensive half, initiating those spawn peaks. Bros Without Hose not spawn peaking, not being aggressive, on those early spawn peaks and runouts as much as Coastal does, but they're still pulling out, still, trying to make Coastal rethink their steps. And for the first time in the series, Coastal, while bringing a shield, will actually be Monty this time around. And that really goes to show how Coastal in these last couple rounds, especially after that initial failure of a blitz round, are starting to play a little aggressive. And that's in part due to Bros Without Hose forcing them to play passive, forcing Coastal to really, second guess themselves. And that's why we find ourselves with a Monty. Monty going to be doing a lot slower, trying to get intel rather than just trying to get those first initial picks. But the problem is you have 2 players who have a Goyo canister, and this is only just going to waste time for Coastal.
It will waste time for Coastal, but they have a decent amount of time still, and honestly, what better time to get rid of these Goyo canisters than just as soon as possible. And a great pinch. Joe is going to run back into the flames as he is being pressured by Recited. That's a good way to start things off. In addition, Mike W with another engagement happening across the map. He will take some damage, but he will find Jot, and that'll be a good shutdown. So it's 4v4, but with a Monty on the board, that means 3 primary weapons for the side of Coastal versus 4 for the side of Bros Without Hose. Monty's going to have to be able to have some fragging potential here, but he's on really low HP because he becomes such a target for all these defenders who just throw all of their utility at him.
And the thing is, for Bros Without Hose, is that Coastal has all the control at top black stairs, and they have no players, no roamers down below to retake and flank these players. So as of now, Coastal is just going to have complete and utter control of top black, and surely if they can push just one more defender out, they should have an easy way, an easy walkthrough right into Siphon and Plant, and that really looks like what Coastal is starting to try to do. They're trying to go for this plant rather than trying to just flush out these players. But the problem is they're starting to lose players, and they haven't gone that wall into B site open, and because of that, they're in a little bit of an engagement. But Don Snoopy and Engage trading each other, and now we find ourselves 20 seconds left in a 2v2.
The 2v2, but once again, how many primary weapons does Coastal have? They got Ace, and that's it. Monty's running around with a pistol, which sure you can get picks with, but when you're up against these other defenders with these good guns, it's gonna be tough. Quartz has to stop this plant now. Can he get it off in time? No, he's just a little bit too slow. He's not even gonna be able to put some damage onto Recited, and Russ with a pick. It's gonna be all down the Quartz. They know he's down below. This should be an easy shutout for Coastal, who managed to just barely get things scraped by. Russ does shut him out. That was a bit too close for comfort, but ultimately Coastal does swing it their side.
Yeah, Quartz on that Solus play, I wouldn't necessarily say he played it wrong, which, he did. If he played it right, he would have won the round. But he just really second guessed himself. He wasn't sure of how he wanted to play that situation. As you saw, he tried to rotate up those stairs with the Goyo canister, trying to support his teammate. But because he was cut off, he didn't want to risk the health, maybe potentially dying. So he decided, okay, you know what? I'm going to go down. I'm just going to stay down below. I'm going to try to deny plant from below. But the thing is, he wasn't even necessarily sure where Monty was planting because he didn't have the intel if they, pushed into B or A. And because of that, he wasn't able to find that Monty in time or whatsoever, leaving him in pretty much an unwinnable 1v2, especially with that crossfire being hold paired with the Monty. But Bros Without Hose opting to go to the exact same site they just lost again, realizing that, we didn't play that horribly. We just made a couple of mistakes. They understood their mistakes, and they think they can fix it and potentially send themselves into a third map.
Seeing Monty be brought out again, apparently Coastal, this is their win condition, is Monty can do things that they otherwise wouldn't have been able to accomplish. But Bros Without Hose countering the Monty. They've got now an Oryx, and potentially that's specifically just to ram into Monty, knock Monty over, get rid of the safety of that shield, and shut him down. But we will see. Hopping or using Oryx to fight Monty can also be really dangerous, though, because if you get too aggressive and try and charge at Monty's always accompanied by someone behind with a hard-hitting rifle or something like that will shut down an Oryx in a heartbeat.
Oh yeah, and honestly, from Bros Without Hose, I don't hate the Oryx coming out to, put pressure onto that Monty, but I don't like teams bringing out a sole operator to answer an overall play style to an attacking team. Because if that one player from Nilak is shut down, you don't really have a whole lot to answer back, but that's actually, I wouldn't say that big, but Resided getting a lot of damage taken down. But Quartz is going to be shut down. He's trying to play against this Monty. That's not what he needs to do. Resided is somewhat playing this Monty aggressively, just almost as aggressive as he played Blitz. And because of that, Quartz has been pushed all the way out back towards site. And with half the round gone, Coastal now have complete control of the opposite side of the map.
Drone's ready.
Yeah, good use of Monty to just put some pressure right on him. I think Nilak, or Quartz, I should say, got some really good timing with his first impact, because Monty took a ton of damage from that first impact. About half of his HP already gone, which means if this C4 finds something like that, they can down him and kill him. Resided, finished off by Quartz, finally getting rid of that Monty. And if Coastal is kind of organizing the whole strat around this Monty, you just lost your linchpin. That is your win condition gone, and they're going to need to find somewhere else to win this.
Yeah, and honestly, it wasn't even Nilak on the Oryx to actually be that win condition to take out that Monty. It was just simply those two impact grenades taking him down. And now that Thatcher is also being lit up, and with 50 seconds left, sure, you have complete backside control. Bros Without Hose not even really putting themselves in a position to retake, but Coastal don't have a line of way into sight. That line of sight, that way they could get into the site, take those hallways, was recited on that Monty, but that Monty being gone, they haven't found an answer back. They haven't actually really substituted with anything. Aware that there might be a player here, not going to be able to get any picks, and Bros Without Hose just staying in the position, not letting go of any control they have.
Do not move a muscle, Joe. He can just be so damaging in here if he just stays put. He gets his shotgun pick. Russ answers back, so it's 3v3. Russ with the second one. That's pretty big, but Joe is still in this power position. They can't remove him. He's got too much bulletproof stuff. Mike W also here. He can continue to go big. Run in, can shut down Joe, but it's going to take a lot of his HP away. Mike W go big here if he can find it, but Russ goes huge on that round. Shuts down Mike W. A bit of a sloppy gunfight right there at the end. I'm not sure why he flicked off of Mike W, but he ultimately does manage to shut him down. And another really close, kind of hairy round for both teams.
Yeah, that was just a round that Coastal, I don't want to say they shouldn't have won, but they were not in a position, whether it be their man count, whether it be any intel, any utility they had to win, but they put so much pressure onto the player of Joe to win it. And because they put so much pressure and eventually did get him out, that was basically all of the hold you had onto that A site. And because of that, they were eventually able to push in. Didn't even go for the bomb plant. They just went for that last player on top black. and then Mike W trolling a little bit, just not really winning that gunfight that he, in my opinion, should have won. But nonetheless, Bros That Hose still only 1 round away, but Coastal Gaming clawing back relatively good.
Yeah, and I mean, even though Monty died there relatively early on, and we didn't see Monty get to be played throughout the entirety of the round, Monty's presence in clearing out, I think the entire, like, I think it's the north side of the map, as all of Office and Exhibition and even Dragon. Monty pushed Legion out of there and pushed them way back, and it created so much time for Coastal then, because they no longer had to focus on clearing the rest of the map. Monty did that, and even though Monty died, they still had the map control, and ultimately they were able to leverage that to their favor. So Monty still being really important. I wonder if we'll see Monty be continued to come back as kind of the main way that Coastal's going to be going about winning this. But we are currently in a little bit of a tech break. I believe Nihilek just had to quit the game for something or some issues, but we will be right back after a short break. So once again, don't go too far, because we got the rest of this very close, very exciting match on Skyscraper to finish up. Well, thank you for bearing with us. We are back. Pretty short break once again. I do not lie, because I am happy to get back quickly here to finish up on Skyscraper, because it's been an exciting map, and I want to see where it goes.
Yeah, I'm also really excited to see where this goes. It could go to a map 3, or we could see Coastal take us to overtime and potentially win it 2-0. But the thing is, Bros Without Hose, if you're looking at their overall defense, it has been good, but 2 of their rounds, they should not have won. And going to that last round, it was a very close one, ending up with Mike W making a questionable play. We're not going to go into that too much, but going in for our very last round of regulation, we're going to be going over to Statue and Offices, which last time we went here, Bros Without Hose won it, and won it near flawlessly. I believe it could have even been a flawless round.
Yeah, there have been some pretty close stuff, some pretty interesting plays, some rounds that I think
10 seconds to go.
teams have won, despite the fact that really it did not look like they should have
5
won.
seconds left before insertion.
But Bros Without Hose have the chance to shut this out right here, right now in regulation. They have exactly
Attackers
one
are moving
chance to
out
do
to
it, because if
locate a
they
bomb and
fail
defuse
here,
it.
if they mess up, if Coastal can win it out, we are going to overtime for sure.
I would love to see an overtime, but the thing is, it's going to be up to Coastal to continue the rounds that they have been winning. And my thing is, they need to play their game. If they want to win, they need to play their game, and they are most definitely playing their game. Resisted, almost getting 2 kills, and yes, he does! He gets a huge double kill, catching Snoopy and Mike W completely off guard, and now Joe is forced to push back up and trying to get a repick and make up for those 2 players lost.
An enormous individual play. I was just about to make a note of that before it actually happened, because I was going to say before break, I remember I said pay attention to whether or not Monty is brought again, and no Monty is brought. You have a Lion and you do have an Amaru. Once again, freeze the defenders in place and then make them really uncomfortable as Amaru just gets there really quickly, and that's exactly what happened. It wasn't the sort of combined double stack that we saw when it was Amaru and Blitz, and that didn't really work out earlier on this map. This one is just Amaru goes in solo, Amaru pushes in quietly, and Amaru gets those picks, and it's worked. And yeah, Joe has to work harder now to try and find a pick. We're seeing the defenders just looking all around. They understand that they have to aggress. They're missing out on opportunities here on that big window of terrace. They're just trying to find anything, but Coastal can take this a little bit slow. Once again, not too slow. Don't slow down too much, because that'll end up costing them, like it did like 3 rounds ago when they threw their 5-3 lead. So it's not impossible for Bros Without Hose to win it, but what an individual play, and what a way to start off this round for Coastal.
The good thing for Coastal is they've now rotated 2 players, one of those players having defuse, over towards balcony right outside of sight, leaving up these other players to try to clear the rest of the roamers, and it's running to finally clear out Joe. And now Coastal are only 2 players away from overtime. Nilak being droned out. They have all of the intel, all of the players in the right positions to finally kill these 2 players and send themselves into overtime. But Runnin being down and that Fenrir gadget is not only going to deny line of sight, but give Nilak a chance to try to retake map control.
That Fenrir potentially saving the life of Torts, but ultimately it doesn't matter, as they do manage to get to different parts of the map, but they are still shut down nonetheless in a really incredible attacking round here from Coastal. Puts us up to 6-6. We are definitely going to overtime. Coastal is starting on the attack, so they have some of that momentum. They've been doing pretty good. They've been heating up. If they can win out the first one on attack, then leverage defenders' advantage for the second round, they can shut this one out and potentially take this map in overtime really quickly.
I really love what Coastal has started to do in these later couple rounds leading up into now overtime. As I said in that early round, if Coastal wanted to not only want to send themselves into overtime, which they now have, but if they want to win this map, win this game, even if we go to a map 3, they have to play their own game, and that's what they did last round. They sent that Amaru with a very aggressive play to get not only 1, but 2 players, catching them completely off guard and continuing to play that aggressive playstyle. The rounds that Coastal were losing were the rounds they were playing a little bit too passive, in the rounds that they were actually playing Bros That Hose game. If Coastal continue to play their own game, they'll have no problem winning, as we just saw their game a flawless round out of that.
5 seconds.
no Monty coming out, sorry. So we're seeing Coastal, once again, going back to that shield. It proved really effective for their 2 rounds that they managed to win. Even when Monty dies early on, just the pressure that Monty can create and how uncomfortable it can make defenders, forcing defenders to give up large swaths of map control can be very instrumental to a successful attack. So I like seeing the Monty again. I don't know if Roosevelt hosts currently have a workaround for Monty, but Ella could be that, those concussion mines, slowing down Monty, potentially revealing some of Monty's body from behind the shield. Could also be a really great way to counter, but we will see when it actually comes to the engagements. But right now, there is no Mars, so there is no instant rush going on from the side of Coastal. This is definitely going to be a really, I think, a more methodical round here, as both teams really want this round, because we are really close, the end of it all. There's only going to be 15 rounds at a maximum, so both teams really want to make sure that they play their absolute best stage here.
I love this play from Nihilak, bringing out that Fen Reader. It, in turn, is a direct counter to the Monty. Sure, it's not going to kill him. Sure, it's not going to be like that Grismod drone that he just hit. It's going to make him put his shield up, but it's going to make him push back. It's going to make Monty second-guess himself. Quartz going for a very hero play swing, but because of that, he is punished, and while engaged does take damage, he takes all the help from Quartz. C4 coming out, just missing. That Monty is going to continue to stay in this round and continue to rampage onto the defense of Bros Without Hose.
Like W prepping a jump out here, but he's just not going to have anyone that's over on that part of the terrace, so not going to find anything. Once again, though, Bros Without Hose having to work from a disadvantage. They got to aggress and get a pick. It's on them now, because Coastal can kind of play the trade game. Although the presence of Monty does mean that the teams are equal in terms of primary weapons. Monty did help kill Quartz, so even though primary weapons are equal, the pressure that Monty's applying is still so dangerous. We're seeing shots going back and forth, but ultimately it's still going to be Coastal taking the lead here as Runnin does shut down Joe. 3v5 for Bros Without Hose. They have to find something as excited in that plant down. Snoopy will get one, but not before Russ gets another one, and it's all going the way of Coastal, who are potentially looking to take this in 2 maps.
Don Snoopy, the man himself, he's having somewhat of a good game, and now it's all up to him in a 1v4. Just honestly an unwinnable round, and I really love how Coastal Gaming did somewhat of the exact same push, but they dealt with a lot of the early problems they had in the round of 4 when they were attacking the exact same site. They got that wall up early, letting that Monty being able to push in, put that plant down with about half of the round left, and because of that, even if they did lose a player, they didn't have to struggle with that 20-second timer that they did with Mike W. They didn't have to worry about that last player, mostly not only because of the time, but because they just completely cleared out all of the defenders. And honestly, it's that aggression. But not only with that aggression, they had crossfires, lines of sights to catch these defenders trying to retake, trying to swing onto the Monty. And because of that, Bros Without Hose not aware of those positions of those attackers holding those crossfires and just completely dying up to gunfights that they weren't even shooting back at.
At this point where you kind of got to wonder about the mental status of Bros Without Hose. They had a really solid attacking half. They kind of dazzled us with a 3-3 split, despite the fact that we thought it would go the defender's way. They had some pretty impressive rounds on defense with a number of clutches that really should have just made them completely elated. They were winning rounds that they totally shouldn't have, but Coastal has been able to stay in it and stay competitive, and now they are on match point and series point. And we've seen it, the smack talk in the chat between the players, Coastal calling out Bros Without Hose, saying, hey, you only needed one more round. What's going on, guys? You're throwing. Is that going to affect Bros Without Hose? Are they, mentally in compromise right now?
We've seen this scoreline this series. Just the map before. Coastal winning their first round, going up 7-6, then winning it back-to-back. Both coming on the defense, rather they are on attack now, leading into their defense. The thing is, can Coastal do it again? Can they win the second map 2-0, but not only 2, but winning both overtime rounds back-to-back in a row, not even giving Bros Without Hose one overtime round? And right now, it really looks like, sure, it's only a minute into the round, but as already in early of this round, Bros Without Hose just seem to be stalling, trying to drone out these players, but they just are not able to find them. But Recited is able to find Don Snoopy. It is now your Twitch gone. and you still don't have this black player stayer pushed out.
Potentially looking to shut things out here. Coastal have man advantage, and they can start pushing, and they still have plenty of time for Roosevelt Hose, though, to remount their attack and make things work. It's really just going to come down to, do they have, everything in order? Do they have map control? Or are they going to be continuously punished by this aggression? Nylak with a great pick, though. That's a shot. Taken out on the stairs. Quartz following it up. All of a sudden, is the momentum shifting? Bros without hose, man advantage. This could be enormous. They still have plenty of time. And the damage has really only been done on the Nylak, who's now on about a third of his health. The rest of the players are all fine. They can tank some stuff here.
Yeah, a really good first opening round with Bros Without Hose, but the problem they find themselves is they don't have a whole lot of lines of sight or even control onto the actual map. Sure, they'll have, positions downstairs, ready in case a player is going down. Joe going to be going onto the plant, but Runnin is just allowed to swing, and now not only have they lost defuse, they just don't have control of it and resisted, now following it back up, now putting themselves in a 3v2.
It's going to be up to Quartz to find one pick. He does find Runnin sitting right there, but across the map, Engage gets the 2, shutting it out here, shutting it out on Skyscraper. We aren't going to map 3. Coastal, take it.
Wow. Going into this matchup, we knew it was going to be close. But we didn't know it was going to be close only on round count. We thought we were going to a third map, but no. Coastal continuing their rampage through the XGS Spring Burst, now winning the group stage in a 2-0 fashion. And throughout the entire group stage so far, they've, out of, I believe, 5 maps, they've only dropped 1.
And I mean, these are some really exciting maps. Coastal did take both of them, but I mean, they're both 8-6. They were both rounds that were really close, really sketchy from both teams, as well as ones where Coastal kind of led a round that they should have won slip through, but at the same time, Bros Without Hose was doing the exact same thing. There were rounds where they had advantage, or it looked like Coastal shouldn't be able to pull out a win, and it happens.
Yeah, it just does happen, but the thing is for Bros Without Hose is the day you lose is the day you get out. You had to win today. They are now out. Coastal Gaming moving out of groups, I believe, and this was a promotion game, and honestly, a great showing. And they're continuing to show that their success isn't a fluke. It is a consistent stat. It's a consistent state of mind they continue to have, and it doesn't matter what team they play. They keep playing their own game, and it doesn't really matter what they go up against.
They did a great job when it came to their attacks. They were really struggling. Bros Without Hose had I think a 6-3 lead.
Yeah.
And Coastal Gaming were just like, okay, we have to change our attacks. We have to do something. They started bringing more unique operator lineups, more deliberate stuff, and they pushed it all the way to overtime, cleared it out there. Really impressive comeback from them to not only just accomplish the comeback, but mentally have the stamina and the fortitude to make something like that happen.
Yeah, it really just goes to show that, even coming into this, people may not have known who Coastal Gaming was, who the players were. They're not new. It's not like this is the very first, T3 event they have played. They played a lot of T4. They're known T4 players. But the thing is, we did expect them to not only win, but put up such successful rounds and showings against great teams. Keep in mind, before this, they only lost to Valkyrie, a E2 team, by 1 round. I mean, this is a consistency we're seeing. And not to take too much away from, Bros Without Hose. Obviously, they're not a T2 level team. They have some caliber team. They haven't played T2 together, but they're still a great roster. And for Coastal Gaming to win, not only against them whatsoever, but in a 2-0 fashion, in both back-to-back overtimes, going 2-0, not even giving Bros Without Hose 1 overtime round. They're just looking great going on further into the Spring Burst.
Yeah, and I'm really excited to see, because I believe that they get another opportunity to keep trying to go here. I look forward to their future here in this tournament, especially how exciting this was and how their adaptability and their individual level of play was showcased really well on both maps, but especially Skyscraper. Really looking forward to watching more of them. I believe we've got an interview, hopefully, but we will get to that in just a little bit. Furthermore, we got more stuff coming up after this too. If you want to talk about kind of what other match we have coming up.
It is yet again another decider match. I'm not exactly sure what the team I'm trying to remember. You'll see later, but you have two great casters. It is a best of 3, so it's the exact same matchup we have here, the exact same layout, a best of 3. And going into this match, it really goes to show. I think from even though this was a 2-0, it was still a very close game. And it goes to show that the teams we have, not only in qual or later quals, I guess not early quals, it was a 50 qual team, you're going to have some really bad teams. But going to like the later quals and then going into groups, every game is really competitive. We haven't had a 3-0 or a 7-0 rather. We haven't had, a 7-1. And even in these best of 3s that do end in a 2-0, they're very close. We just got off 2 overtime matches, which, also goes to show how good of a mental that Coastal Gaming has. Because, going into overtime, sure, they're not completely new, but going up against a really good team, it does take a lot of, mental stability to actually win, not only in overtime, but 2 back-to-back rounds twice. I'm really happy to see new players. Obviously these players aren't new, but they're new to this level. They're new to this, I guess you could say, scene. It's a breath of fresh air, honestly.
All right, we have an interview coming up here from one of the guys from Coastal, so let's throw to that. Let's talk to them. Let's see how they're feeling right now.
Yo, what's good?
What's good, Engage? How you doing? How you feeling after that win?
Doing pretty good, to be honest. It's winning 4 rounds in a row on attack on Skyscraper feels really good. So glad to be here.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about. So, you were down. I believe it was 3-6, and you guys really had to pull out a big comeback. You had some really impressive rounds, some really close rounds. What is going on individually for you mentally, but also as a team? What are you guys doing to stay in the game?
I'll be real. We when we're down, I just tell Rosetta to get silly, and he gets silly, and we win rounds. So.
That's awesome to hear. I also wanted to ask you for both maps. Both teams, both you and Bros Without Hose, on defense, you guys are really squirrely on defense. A lot of moving around, spawn peaks like every single round. Is that something that you're doing because you're just feeling really loose and feeling really comfortable, or is that a strategy right now just because of how you guys are working it out, or is it a symptom of the really defender-sided meta that we're currently in a siege? What's going on there?
Teams don't look for spawn peaks. They just don't. Joe's team complained about spawn peaks when we scrimmed them like a couple weeks ago. So I knew it was going to be pretty free. They don't check for them. They don't do them. So it's pretty easy. Can't lie.
Just kept punishing them with those things because those were, pretty constant. You put a lot of pressure on them. I'll give you one more question here. You got, you win it here. You got a promotion match. You're going to back in for some more stuff here. You knocked out Bros Without Hosts, so you're still in this tournament. How are you guys feeling going into another match? How's the mental as you keep going? Are you guys really excited? You guys feeling really strong right now? Because you were looking really great.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely feeling it. My voice doesn't sound like it, but we're definitely feeling it right now. Yeah, no, we're ready for it. We knew that we were going to beat Joe's team. Love them to death, but we knew we were going to beat them.
All right, if there's anyone you want to say hi to or do a quick shout out, you can do that right now.
Coastal, thank you guys very much for welcoming me and Gav back to the org. Appreciate it. I used to be on their team about 2 years ago. Resided, wanted to tell Mike that you need to focus up next time. I love my teammates, every single one of them. And thank you for having us here, guys. Appreciate y'all.
Thanks for coming to talk with us. Had a lot of fun watching that. We're going to look at some of the stats now. So thank you for popping on.
Appreciate it.
We will throw out. Always calling out Mike W.
Yeah, I really love that. And obviously Mike W is the player you want to call out.
Yeah.
That at the end of the series, he did have a very successful game, going 25-22. Also, that entry game being 4-2. But the thing is, Coastal Gaming, when they started to lose those entry engagements, even though Recited won 8-4 at the end of it, they started to find an answer back, started clawing back when they're when they're under a man deficit going into that mid to late round. And I really like that because, the first game, obviously they had a player sub in, and I was, wondering how they would change up. And that change up was being seen as they didn't need those early engagements to win rounds as much as they did, as we saw on the first map. And I just really like it. Also, I just really like, talking about their overall mental. You could see running or engage rather was just really happy, really giddy, really smiling. It really goes to show just how much they want this.
An interesting thing quickly to point out is if you look at the entry stats, it's actually the same for both teams. You had a 4-2, an 8-4, a 2-4, and a 2-2. So in terms of entry, these guys were really even. They had some really competitive opening stuff, but that just goes to show you how much that even though entry often does lead to round conversions, it's not always the end of the world. How many rounds did we see where a team went down 3-5 in terms of man count, and they managed to bring it back? Because entry, while really important, doesn't ultimately win you the round. It comes down to how you play it out in the mid to late to final bits of that round.
Yeah, no, and also, just again going into their mental, as you saw, they were calling out, Mike W. You saw Mike W. saying, hey, congrats, you're winning your first league. And yeah, that's what they're doing. And going up against young players, the most dangerous thing you can do when going up against good players, or I guess young players, you say, is when they're antsy, when they really want it. We're seeing it, younger players, seeing Ambi and Ashton now coming into the scene. They're young, they want it more, and they feel themselves, and they're going to take those aggressive plays. And that's why they not only were Coastal Gaming taking it, but they were winning it because they put all of their cards in. They didn't second guess themselves in those spawn peaks, in those runouts, in those really aggressive retakes. And that's why they were winning those 3v5 late round to, end rounds. And it was just, I really love seeing not only young talent, but just really aggressive and angsty talent.
Yeah, well put. We've got more talent coming on the way because we've got one more match, another best of 3, another promotion match, which means one team is going home after this. For the Group A section of this group stage, it'll be Team SBL versus Outlast. That'll be here pretty shortly after a short break. That's it for me and for Goose. Thank you so much. We've had a blast. These were excellent games. But once again, don't go too far. It'll just be a quick break, and there'll be more Siege right after this.